Hello and welcome to the Milford Finance Committee, Wednesday, May 10th, 2017. First item on the agenda is the approval of the April 26th, 2017 minutes. You weren't here, Jack.
I'll move on it, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Motion by Aldo,
Second.
second by Mike. All those in favor? Unanimous. Nicholson. All right, second item on the agenda is the planning board. We had 3 planning board articles last time. We did one of them, the other 2. You guys were looking to have them come in, so Mr. Kennelly came in to go over Articles 34 and 41. Thanks for coming in, Pat. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming in, Pat.
Anytime.
Pat,
coming in,
thanks for
Pat.
coming in.
Thank you, Aldo. Remember, the last time you came in front of my board, I think it was like 30 seconds, but I won't hold you to the same.
That was 27 years ago.
No, I think it was like 27 days ago.
There you go.
All right, Article 34, the establishment of zoning for the marijuana establishments in town.
So we didn't have to wait 2 hours.
Okay. So specifically, what Article 34 does is it provides a new definition for marijuana establishments as a marijuana cultivator, testing facility, product manufacturer, retailer, or any other related business, but not to include a medical marijuana treatment center. Specifically, this amendment also provides for marijuana establishments as a right within the central commercial C in all 3 industrial zoning districts. It provides for such usage generally within the CB commercial zone, but only by special permit. In addition, Article 34 would further limit marijuana establishments within the CB and CC commercial zone for retail sales only, and would prohibit marijuana establishments altogether within the downtown CA zoning district. If you can just, and regrettably, I had Larry highlight on that map the zones in which we're referring to in terms of being able to sell it. Obviously, on some of the outskirt zones, those are more designed for not only retail, but the actual cultivation of legalized marijuana. Again, we have to make the distinction that this is not for the medical use. And I think that it's just noteworthy to understand that we already have medical marijuana zoning districts established. Obviously, at the time, excuse me, medical was brought to vote first and obviously allowed. This is why clearly, at the time that we set forth the medical zoning, personalized, legalized recreational marijuana wasn't on the on anyone's horizon. That's why we didn't do them concurrently. I know when we look, major distinctions, if you will, between the two, medical and recreation, is that the sense was that we looked at recreation as nothing different than any other business. No different, if you will, than perhaps a gas station, pharmaceutical, hotel, normal retail, and so on and so forth. So within the close proximity of downtown, they're just making this statement just because I know you really can't visually see the map. The actual downtown, if you will, you cannot sell retail marijuana at all. Leading into downtown, if you will, you can, but by special permit. Obviously, in the, yes.
Those are the dark sections.
Those are going to be more the, if you look at the zoning, Mark, I think you're going to see that those are, yep,
CA.
right. And if you refer back to this, the CC, again, is only for retail, and that would only be by special permit. So again, the areas leading through and downtown is by special permit. On the outskirts, and again, just for place of clarity, if you will, when we refer to the former Big D site, those would be considered on the outskirts. When we consider the former Kmart, that would be, and we consider up in the greater Waters area. Those are zones that obviously support commercial uses. And again, I'm not here to debate the importance of whether you would approve or disapprove of marijuana, but we looked at this solely as an allowable use. That's all that this article basically supports. And again, it's just an overview of the areas in Milford. And again, we have to look at this very blindly in terms of, it's not a representation of whether or not we like the use or not, it's whether or not the use will fit with a typical retail application.
So, you said Big D Waters and what else?
Former Kmart, just, again, just for clarity purposes, if you will.
I would open up for questions.
Yeah, just for clarity, you said it will be or will not be allowed in the CA downtown district? Because I see it highlighted in purple in the CA downtown.
The CA is prohibited.
CA is prohibited, downtown CA is prohibited, okay.
The CC,
It's only like
A special permit.
So that dark purple is
again, forgive me, I would have thought that he would have highlighted it slightly different
okay.
to prove the distinctions, but you know, to me, it all looks like it's purple. I'm just saying.
Any other questions? Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
I think the reason we asked the chairman of the planning board to come in to discuss this was exactly that. You know, why the restriction for downtown as opposed to Route 16 or any other place? What decided that distinction?
There's a couple of reasons. One, and again, when you look at in Milford in terms of how it passed in Milford, and it was a reasonably tight margin, if you will. The feeling was that the downtown, there should be some degree of integrity, if there's any to be remained. That the preference would be that as you came through the downtown district of Milford, that it wouldn't be highlighted by, again, detailing what it was. And I have to be very careful and choosy how I'm going to say this. Because again, obviously, we know that I can't discriminate on signs and/or the content. So the other thing is that you have a lot of foot traffic in downtown, and we just felt that the greater downtown would not benefit. And that obviously there's a degree of deficiency in parking, if you will, and that we felt that barring the downtown wouldn't prohibit people from coming if there's such an establishment. That not being in downtown would not be any real detriment to a potential retailer. Again, in terms of when we look at special permit, obviously, we are certainly going to be looking at sites that could support ample off-street parking for such a retail application. So that's why we took the downtown out of it, just because I don't believe that the downtown, as it's situated right now, would support a great influx of patrons, if you will, go into that specific. And again, you can't always, you like to look at retail as a whole and think that there's a degree of carryover, meaning I come to you to pay my water bill, I go next door and buy a coffee, I go the 3 doors down and pick up my shoes. Again, you like to hope that they marry together. Whereas in this application, I don't know if there's any other purpose for someone to come other than that one use, if you will, so.
All right, I guess so the other question I have is how is it distinguished amongst or between a tattoo parlor or a smoke shop and
A liquor store.
and a liquor store and marijuana? I mean, no liquor store.
I don't distinguish them, that's what I'm trying to say to you.
It's gonna be-
We did not distinguish them.
So it's the same area, typically.
In terms of actual, yes, again, we looked at it blindly, as I said, it's another acceptable retail use,
But in
with
those
the exception
of downtown.
of downtown.
I had another question. I noticed on the CB, you have S, and forgive me, I'm not too familiar with the coding, the O, S, and P, but the CB is S and CC is P. Could you just quickly define those?
At the warrant.
So it says CB, S, and CCP.
Okay, so the O's represent a district that you cannot.
Prohibited, right. But what's the difference between S and P?
A P is going to be a permitted use and S is going to be a special permit.
And
That's why I said
and that'd be
it's easy.
issued by the zoning board? The special permit would be issued by the zoning board or planning board?
Planning.
Planning board.
No,
okay.
planning.
Yep, I'm just gonna get to Mike. Did you
And
have
again,
something?
if I just may just
Mark asked
clarify
my question.
for one quick second. Again, in terms of why it didn't get kicked to the zoning board rather than staying with the planning board, again, as I briefly stated earlier, we're gonna be looking at it in terms of sufficient off-street parking, building, and the capacities. And the zoning generally, by design, takes all of your parking requirements, throws it out and allows you to do what they think is reasonable. That's why, and again, not that we're being specific to one use, but it's just, when we look at sites, we look at, you know, such things as traffic, the flow, and obviously parking, so.
I don't know the answer to this question, who determines the tax liability on the store owner? I mean, I know marijuana is being taxed, and there's certain tax limits you could put on, so I don't know if that's planning board, is it selectmen, is it?
My initial feeling would probably be that it would come either from the Board of Health or Selectmen, and if I had to guess, I would say the Selectmen. The planning board has no financial impact in terms of, it, to me, a tax influx is no different than I can't enforce or tell you what color your building should be, or what you should be selling. We don't have those luxuries, so again, when it comes in terms of a dollar monetary tax incentives to the town, I couldn't speak to that. And again, none of the,
Wouldn't it be the state treasurer that's gonna?
I couldn't speak to that.
Well, you could also put a local,
It's a local tax. And there's a
Again, I think,
And that's
I think if I may, I think this board recommended when, in terms of, like a hotel tax, I think,
Right.
again, it's generated more from entities like this than it is the planning board. We only collect the designated fees associated with, you know, an application. Other than that, there's no, we don't impose any additional fees.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, so Pat, so you say that you, one of the reasons for not having it in the downtown area was because of traffic concerns.
More so parking, but
Parking to traffic, right? So did you have some data that said a marijuana retail establishment's gonna have more traffic, more foot traffic, more cars than, say, a liquor store or a smoke shop or a tattoo parlor or a clothing store? And do we have history of retail places in other places that, you know, that are streaming in and coming out?
it's what we're gonna refer back to as a pre-existing condition.
Okay,
Meaning that when we look at downtown, there is not, just in the actual Main Street, there's not a surplus of parking. Based on the existing businesses that are here today, there's not a surplus. Not to suggest that off-street parking behind these buildings
right,
is at capacity, I'm not saying that.
right.
When we look at a liquor store specifically, just because you picked that
Well,
up,
there is one downtown, that's why I mentioned that.
and they have parking.
Do they have parking?
yeah, beside there,
Okay,
across from the gas station.
all right.
So again, not that we're highlighting or discriminating against one specific use.
Right,
It's just that the downtown at present configuration doesn't appear to have sufficient off-street parking
okay,
that makes it accessible for this type of use. And again, I also said that there's a degree of, you know, attempting to keep some sort of wholesome look to the downtown area, if there's such an argument for that.
okay. All right,
Ellen?
But again, when you look specifically to that liquor store that you pointed out, they do have parking.
okay. But the smoke shop that used to be downtown had no parking.
And there's an argument, perhaps that's why they're no longer there, because they couldn't support customers based on a lack of parking. Again, I can't speak to that, I'm just,
But there is municipal parking behind those buildings, though.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay.
As I said to you, I didn't suggest that the parking behind it was at capacity. I didn't suggest that.
Okay, all right. It's just interesting that you would think that maybe a small mom-and-pop type retail establishment would fit more into a downtown area than, say, somewhere out on Route 16 or in a larger development type of thing. And I'm not sure what type of retail facility is going to come. If it's going to be, you know, some huge superstore or something, I don't know. But you would think it's more of a small business type of building that would be more amenable to a downtown area than somewhere on the highway.
But there's also an argument that people, due to existing traffic that occurs at certain intervals of the day, would more favor a place that had sufficient parking that they could pull in, similar to a convenience store, and do a degree of shopping and know that they have an area that they can park and get out and shop accordingly. Again, as we know, downtown as a whole for a lot of communities suffer because of the advent of small stream shopping plazas, malls, things of that matter, which again, they're big trade.
But you bring up a good question, Patrick, excuse me. So can an established convenience store become a marijuana retail facility?
Within that district, they certainly could.
So like the 7-Eleven or the Tedeschi's that's already downtown,
No,
if they,
within the district.
Within the district. I did say within the district.
but my point is that
These are my
those
words.
places do have parking already. So,
Again,
We moved the question.
okay.
exception of just that one zone, everything else is either
Just-
allowable by right or by special permit.
Let's just ask Aldo.
I just, well, I have a curious question. The planning board has come up with that particular proposal. Have we not, in past years and months or whatever, referred this type of a vote to the sponsor?
We usually do.
And that's exactly what I'll do
Gonna make that
now.
motion?
I would move that it be
Phil would like to second that, to refer to sponsor on Article
34.
34. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Second article is Article 41, referring to the placement of solar panels in certain districts.
This provides for roof building mounted large-scale solar energy systems to be installed on buildings owned or controlled by the town of Milford. These would be as a matter of right within the zoning districts except within the downtown CA central commercial zone where they are still prohibited. The article also proposes to no longer require site plan approval for large-scale roof building mounted systems. Currently, no site plan approval is required for small-scale building, roof building mounted solar installations. Essentially what this is saying, and again, we'll just use as example, perhaps a high school, Woodland, any of the school roofs, instead of requiring planning board approval, if the town, for whatever reason, entered into an agreement, either by themselves or a third-party entity, and wanted to introduce solar to one of the town-owned buildings, that they could do so as a matter of right. It clears an obstacle that, as of today, exists, or had existed.
Certainly, and it's obviously something that we've talked considerably about, trying to get these buildings to engage in conversations with solar companies because of all the benefits that comes with it. So with that, Mark?
That's solely on the building,
On the building,
not as a farm next to it.
just rooftop.
Okay.
And we made that distinction. Obviously, we, as a planning board, don't feel that we should be able to control town-owned property in terms of dictating whether solar field should be built. Again, we'll use the example of, I don't, we'll say Louisa Lake as an example. I think that if we clear that as a matter of right, that may have some adverse effect.
Okay.
Anyone else, any other questions?
Yeah,
Move,
real quick, so you're saying that you're deleting the requirement to come before the planning board if you're gonna put on the roof, but if they wanted to put them like in the parking lot, they'd have to come to you.
Correct.
Okay.
And the reason for that, Mike, just so you understand, again, we spend a lot of time in terms of parking requirements, allowable, so on and so forth. You start talking about parking lots, it may adversely take away from parking that otherwise would be required. That's why we solely specified roofs, because for the most part, there are no components that are on the ground.
Sure.
Essentially just attach the roof and or the side of the building.
So then maybe like the building engineer would be the person to decide whether a roof can support a panel, right?
Correct.
Okay, I'm good.
But again, if I may, Mike, as well, there's been other entities across, like, I'll use an example, Target came in, required a site plan approval. And again, they were not taking up any parking at all, and the requirement was kind of foolish. I'll give another example, Dunkin' Donuts, down across from the liquor store, came in and they just did one that was in the parking lot. Obviously, that did affect some of the parking, so that was something that obviously we would not want to waive. When you get into sometimes some of these parking lots become very tight, and
Sure.
based on the usage is if they're required to have 89 spots, and they have 89 spots, now they want to do this, and
They can
they
waive.
decrease down to 80,
Right.
yeah, that becomes a problem.
Sure, understand. Okay, I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
This does not include downtown.
Correct.
I'm sorry.
Refer, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, motion to refer to sponsor by Aldo,
Second.
second by Mr. DeVita. All those in favor to referring to sponsor? Unanimous. Thanks, Pat.
Are you fine with 21, I assume?
We already did 21.
Oh,
We
good.
referred to sponsor.
That was also a refer.
Wait 30 minutes.
I didn't want to get summons back, I just figured I would sit there and not laugh.
Summon.
Summons!
Oh,
I got a letter at my house and everything, it was awful.
well, was it hand carried and delivered?
I yelled out the
I think
window.
you dropped it off, Mark.
Best thing that happened
Pat,
to you.
that's just because you're such a sensitive guy.
Very true. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Pat.
Pat.
All right.
Good night, Pat.
Article 22, swing around the table.
Captain Chicken.
You have to recuse yourself from voting at this?
Yes, I will be recusing
You want to
myself.
do that up front.
Okay, so for the record, I'm recusing myself from this, this vote.
All
Is
right,
that because you ate the chickens?
and Article 22.
I don't know if
All right,
we're
guys, we got a lot tonight.
So,
Article 22,
I'm
sponsored
sponsoring
by
this,
Mr. Soers.
I'm sponsoring this article that redefines what the town considers residential animals. Currently, up to 3 dogs and 3 cats are not considered residential animals. This would simply include up to 4 hens, no roosters, with that same definition, or the same exemption from the definition, so that residents can have a small amount of, up to 4 hens without the special permit process.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Aldo.
ZBA, Mike?
Pardon?
The restrictions you have there, you're coming forward with these for whom?
So currently,
Is it one of the committees that's putting this forward?
no, this is a citizen.
It's an individual.
This,
It's his
yes, I
personal-
collected signatures to sponsor this on the petition, on the town warrant.
Again?
Popular guy in Milford.
Can't even get it out. Mike, do you have to go before the zoning board or the planning board, or?
If you,
Zoning, I guess.
currently, even if you have any animal other than up to 3 dogs or up to 3 cats, any animal at all, that lives outside of the house, you have to get a special permit from the zoning board of appeals, which is an expensive process.
So if the chickens live inside, you're good.
Chickens don't live inside. Well, yes. If you look at the definition of residential animal, any household pet that is kept wholly inside of the house is exempt from the residential animal requirement as well.
Mr. DeVita.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, I got you.
Recommendation that we refer to sponsor on this article.
He is the sponsor.
He is the sponsor.
That was
Well,
my,
this is the
Yeah,
finance committee.
Yeah,
so
so
you
A
can-
recommendation,
you
just
can
like,
make it-
just like Pat
It's
was
a
saying.
recommendation, and my recommendation is.
It's
refers-
legit. Refer to the sponsor at town meeting.
Right.
yeah.
You can do.
I just had a thought, Bob. I mean, shouldn't you go before one of the zoning board and see if they'll sponsor the article? Is that?
Well, yeah, so
I just
So
wanna know.
I follow the process, the citizen petition
Yeah.
process, because, I mean, I wasn't looking for it to be sponsored by the planning
But that could
board.
have been a route you had taken. You could have gone to the zoning board and get
It
there.
could have been a route I went, but I chose not to.
Okay, all right. I just want to understand.
absolutely.
You said it's an expensive permit. Do you have any idea what the scope, magnitude?
It's,
4 dozen eggs.
it's hundreds of dollars, so it depends on how many abutters you have. But I've heard around $325, and then there's a $50 fee to record the special permit with the land deeds. Worcester.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. DeVito. Do I have a second on that?
Yeah, I'll second.
Mike, second.
Mike Nicholson. Any other discussions on referring to sponsor? All those in favor? You down?
I think he's a member of this committee, and he went, and he took the time to put this article on, and I think it's only fair that this committee either support him or not, my opinion. So, I'll abstain, Mr. Chairman.
Abstain?
Yeah, okay,
So-
I'm not gonna duel him on that one, so we'll just go.
Yeah, I was gonna, yeah, okay, let it go.
Okay, because we voted and it passed to refer to sponsor. Okay, with one abstention. Next one, Mr. Soares, number 30.
Yeah, so I sponsored, so I've sponsored 2 articles. The second one is related to the zoning bylaws in regards to signage. Last year, if you remember town meeting, prohibited temporary and portable signs that do not relate to one-time events. So all those, we support Milford police signs became illegal. And among other signs as well, any sign that doesn't relate to a one-time event. And so this bylaw would essentially allow up to 1 sign per household, even if it does not relate to a one-time event.
I thought we could have one anyway.
Only if it relates to a one-time event.
So a walk for hunger or whatever, you could have a
So
sign.
currently, we have those Celebrate Milford signs out for May 20th. So that, because it relates to a one-time event, those are perfectly fine until 3 days after the 20th, and then they have to be removed.
Mr. Chairman, we shouldn't have let Pat go. I got a whole lecture on this from the planning board chairman. And I believe the lecture was that you can have 1 sign on your property. It doesn't necessarily have to relate to a one-time event. You're allowed 1 sign. And because the planning board cannot tell you what the content of that sign has to say.
So
So I think,
in the opinion of town council and the zoning enforcement officer, John Erickson, those signs are in violation of our bylaw.
okay, I stand corrected. What about the mandatory water ban sign that's hanging all over the place? Are those in violation as well?
Those are private, though.
You're talking about the electronic signs?
No, I'm talking about the one at
Hanging on the
Tank,
fence.
at Tank Field.
I couldn't speak
And
to
the ones
that.
all over the place. Are those illegal as well?
I couldn't tell you.
Is my sign support the Milford Police illegal?
Yeah, that's the one you're talking about.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, is currently illegal in,
I have a basic question. That pesky First Amendment, doesn't that allow me to say I support the Milford Police?
we'll have to talk to a constitutional lawyer.
Second thing is, if my sign is illegal, do I believe the police officers are gonna come and arrest me for putting a sign up that says I support the police?
You'll have to talk to the chief on that
Because if they
one.
do, I'm gonna ask the chief. He's got too many officers if that's what he's spending his time on.
Okay, guys.
Go one way or the other.
Anyone else have a comment on this?
Motion to refer to sponsor.
Second,
Motion by Mike Schiavi, second by Aldo. All those in favor to refer to sponsor? 1 abstention. Mr. Shane?
I support my team.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Swallows. You can come on the
maybe
other
a
side of the
team,
table now.
but you represent the whole town.
All right, next item on the agenda, the selectmen had 2 remaining articles, Articles 35 and 36. Which one is 35? Police chief came today to talk to us about Article 35, which refers to, guys, come on, which refers to civil service. Thanks for coming, chief, appreciate it.
So we have an article that's going before town meeting to remove the police department from hiring and promotion as it relates to civil service. All of the people that presently in the department that were hired through civil service as a matter of law, retain that status. So there's no effect on them unless they are promoted. And they elect to do so, and they would be removed from civil service. The protections as it relates to discipline and things of that nature are all in the contract. It's in the police contract. And frankly, in my experience, I've been a police chief for 30-plus years, very rarely do police officers go to civil service. They go to arbitration. They go to arbitration for obvious reasons. You don't get to select your hearing officer at civil service. Arbitration, as Jack knows, you pick 3 names, the town picks 3 names. If you both pick the same name, that's the person. If not, throw them in a hat, and one of them's gonna be the person. So you have a 50-50 shot. So the union and their lawyers, they appreciate that fact. What does it do for us? We create our own hiring process, and frankly, we're following not one town, not 2 towns, well over 100 cities and towns that have gone out of civil service. So almost everyone around us, communities like Franklin, Wellesley, Needham, like one Westwood, and keep naming, Marlboro just went out, Framingham's going out, they just voted it. So you hold an exam, civil service, in the spring. I don't see grades until October, November. And then there's a 60-day process for people to file appeals. So for a 2-year list, I just lost a year. And I'm restricted to hire within the top 3 names. You don't necessarily have to be residents of this community or have any ties whatsoever. The process is outdated. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The state police, who fall under kind of civil service, have a altogether different process than the civil service process. So we would hold our own exam. By way of example, the town of Walpole held an exam on Saturday, and the people that took that exam had an email with their grade Monday. And those that were being considered received a second email with the background investigation packet, which for us, for me to do a background is about 40 hours of a detective. So it's pretty intensive. We can collapse this process. You're facing over the next several years, because of the way the department was built up, you talk years of service, we're facing over 15 retirements in the next 5 years. We've trained, I've sponsored dispatchers to go to the academy. Some of them are in there now. So they go to the academy all week, full-time. And then they work their 4 shifts. On the weekend, they swap shifts. So they get their weekend, the weekend. Auxiliary police officers. I'm required now to train auxiliary police officers to the same level as full-time officers. So they can go to the part-time academy and receive all the academics. And then we do the practical work with them as far as defensive tactics and firearms and the rest, driving. Some of them have gone to the full-time academy. I have people that were auxiliary officers that work in neighboring departments that would come to work here tomorrow. What's that mean to us? It means we're getting a young person who grew up in this community, who lives in this community, who cares about this community, who's trained. So I just saved 6 months, 28 weeks of salary. Because if I send them to the academy, I have to pay them while they're there. And I have to fill upwards to half of their shifts back at the department. So the numbers, I sent them to the Board of Selectmen, are pretty staggering. If you take just the people that are ready to go, or that could go, over the next 5 years, you're looking at a difference of cost, and this is cost above the budget. Because there's only so much in training, and once you expend it, you're in trouble. To send people to the academy, hiring non-Milford Academy graduates, I have to do some field training I'll cover those people. It'll cost me, over a period of time, $300,000. Can that be handled by the budget? Yes. As contrasted to academy recruit pay, sending people to the academy for these same people, $600,000
Per person?
total.
Oh, for the 15 people.
Tom, excuse me, Tom, why that difference again? I don't quite understand.
Because if I have someone that's already trained, I don't have to send them to the academy. I just saved 28 weeks of pay. I just saved
How would
14.
that person get trained, though? I mean,
They're already trained. They're already certified to
They
the
were a
academy.
cop.
Into the academy.
They've gone to the academy.
They were,
They've already-
okay.
Or they were a dispatcher, I sponsored
Someone
them.
with experience.
Or they were an auxiliary and I sponsored them.
Okay.
So they already have the academy under their belt. So they have 28 weeks academy done. Now I don't have that slot vacant for the 28 weeks, filling it every time I hit minimum.
Okay.
So about 14 weeks of that. So when you take it, you have 600,000 to send them to the academy, you have almost 300,000 just to do field training. In the field training, some of it is you hire a police officer, I bring someone in here. If they're not from Milford and they don't know their way around, that's some of what they're learning. They're riding with another officer. I still have to fill another cruiser over here on overtime, because I still need the staffing, to respond to the number of calls. So the difference is, you take some of the young people that we've already trained, we sponsored them. And they walk in the door, they grew up here, they know their way around town, they know the streets, they know where they're going. You can collapse 12, 14 weeks of field training, riding with another officer, down to about 3 weeks. Some of these, you really don't have to do field training. They already know our computer system, they've worked on it, they were dispatchers for years. They understand how we operate. So you can basically put them on the street. The savings are truly, for the community, astronomical. But aside from that, you're attracting, we're increasing what our requirements are. Civil service is a GED or high school education. We're saying, no, you have to have an associate's degree. We're saying to those young people that we train, you have to have 2 years of experience either with us or with another police agency. So you served as a dispatcher, you served as an auxiliary officer, and you can add on whatever experience you have with another police department. And we'll move you to the top of the list. Why? It's an advantage to the community. It's an advantage to the department. We already know them. They were good employees when they were with us. They simply left to go be police officers in our neighboring towns because the opportunity was there. They're non-civil service. They just hire them. So when all is said and done, it's clearly an advantage to the community. We have the support of the police union, and that's why we're moving forward.
Aldo, then Phil.
Chief, your position some years ago was a civil service position.
Right.
And as I recall, I was on the committee that studied that. It allowed us the latitude to pick an individual that we felt would be better suited than the list that came from Boston or wherever it was. I think it's a great idea. It gives the department the opportunity to put people in spots where they can best serve it. It's almost like the round peg in the round hole rather than the square peg in the round hole. So, I mean, having already spoken with the chief about that, at our meetings, we know what was going on. I think it's a great idea, and I see it's nothing but upside for the town.
Phil.
Yeah, I like it as well, Tom. I guess one of my concerns would be numbers. I know civil service is what, a statewide exam, so you're getting applicants, well, the list is comprised of applicants from everywhere.
Correct.
And if we just kind of do our own list, are we gonna get the same numbers in terms of people interested in becoming?
Absolutely. If there's one area in the country where to seek and get a police job is difficult, it's New England. You can go outside New England, you want to be a police officer, just walk in the door. It's still highly competitive in New England. If you take a look at, I've talked to the chief in Walpole, Westwood, Wellesley, Needham, and because they've had a a number of years of experience, haven't gone out of civil service, and they're attracting applicants across the board.
Yeah, my son-in-law's a police officer in the city of Boston, and they're going the other way. You know, I know we're not Boston, obviously, but they can't get interest, there's not the same numbers.
Boston has but if you look at the articles, you know, Boston, when they talk about diversity, they're having issues with
Yeah.
diversity. Why? Because the way the civil service system is structured, you have to hire off of that list. If I have one vacancy, I have to hire in the top 3 names, regardless of whether I want it. And by way of example, and not that they weren't, they were excellent police officers, but if you're laid off, you go to the top of the list. So if you recall, at one point in time, I was forced to hire 6 people. They're at the top of the list. They were laid off, 5 from Worcester and 1 from Fall River. Presently, the one from Fall River, he decided to stay here. He still has 10 years of rights to walk back into Fall River and say, you have a vacancy, that's my job. There's an absolute right to walk in, and they have to give it to him. The Worcester individuals, all but one went back to Worcester. They were from Worcester, that's where they want to work. They were excellent police officers. But we invested. We invested training. We invested uniforms. We invested equipment. And they were gone within 3 years. And we have no choice, we have no say in that matter. That's the civil service law. You take it, that's the way it is.
Yeah, Tom, one quick follow-up question. In terms of the exam, would Milford have its own exam, and who would do that? And how would that compare with the civil services?
It would be very similar. We would hire, as they do, we would hire a company to administer the exam to ensure that it's valid, so that the validity, that it's non-discriminatory, and that it meets the requirements and standards of the law constitutionally as well as statutorily.
What degree of difficulty?
It's actually driven by what the job requires. So they look at, here are the job requirements, you know, and from there, the exam's developed. Now, we can add things to it that are particular to us, such as our bylaws and things of that nature, and cause people, as long as we provide them with the material that they can study. So there are things that we can do. We can give credit to people, which we plan on doing. We've already built out the policies with the Board of Selectmen, with the union. So we're gonna give credit to people that are veterans. We're gonna give, you know, disabled veterans. As civil service, it's kind of absolute. State police, it's not. So the system has gone upside down and frankly, doesn't serve the communities. I mean, the civil service, as you know, I discussed with you how the exam works. There's 3 people at the state level that handle police and fire civil service across the Commonwealth. So that's the extent of the service you're getting. We do all the work already. So we would hold our own exam. In promotions, we'd be allowed to use assessment centers as well as the exam. So you're not just looking at someone sits down and takes a paper test and you're locked in, that's the person. No, we can look at their performance, we can look at their disciplinary history, we can look at a number of things. And we laid all that out in, as I said, in working with the union. And we have an agreement on that. So I think it's a better product in the long run.
Does anybody else?
Tom.
Yeah, Mark?
Is there a financial impact to the town, short-term, long-term, other than what we discussed for rehiring new people?
No, because the examination, very much like the civil service examination, even on promotions, the applicants pay to take the exam.
No, I don't mean that, Chief. I
Sorry.
mean, if we pass this article on May 22nd, is there any financial impact that the town has to do between now and July 1st, or July 1st going forward with nothing?
No, I don't believe so. Just to touch on, but as I was touching on, the examinations are, as is the case with the state civil service, to take that exam, the applicants pay. So they pay a couple $100 to take the exam. Even if you want to be promoted, you're paying the state. The assessment center likewise. So all of the costs are borne by the people that are interested in seeking the position.
And there's no effect on the existing police force?
Sorry?
No effect on the existing police force?
No, by law. It's required by law that you cannot affect them. Only if a police officer seeks promotion to sergeant, or a sergeant seeks promotion to lieutenant, because those are the civil service positions presently in the department, then it would have an effect, because they would be going from a civil service position to non-civil service.
Anybody
As
else?
I did many years ago, so it's.
Yeah.
So, thanks, Chief. Yeah, so as Aldo had alluded to, we just did discuss this at the meeting on the 20th, and the chief put forward the compelling reasons for the article. However, the subcommittee did not feel that we should vote as a subcommittee on whether to accept the article or not, and have the chief come in and explain his own points. So I think that what the board has to do, whether we decide to go refer to sponsor or to approve it and recommend it, is the compelling reason of cost avoidance that the chief just gave to us with the retirements
That's why-
coming
yeah,
forward.
that's why I would hope that if we could make someone.
Motion.
I think you should follow me, just like, because I'm on the team.
I can abstain here too.
I have a motion by Al and seconded by Mike for a favorable recommendation on Article 35. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Chief?
So-
I made note, we won't come to your house to deliver like we did to Pat.
There you go.
Next article is the Selectmen's article, Article 36.
Did you want to do this budget, Willie, sir?
And then
If you want to.
if you'd like to, and then I have the 2 speed regulations, I don't know if you're gonna
We
touch
already,
those. You did? God bless you.
referred.
Yeah, we can, bicycles now.
Those are revenue enhancement articles, by the way.
Bicycles, chief.
All right,
We're all gonna
chief.
get bikes.
There have been some, I don't have the updated number.
It's on the drive.
Is it on the drive? I apologize. There were some changes to the police department's budget as of the last time we met, and that's why we wanted to wait after last meeting, have the chief come in and talk to us. So, Chief, why don't you talk about what the difference is from your original submitted budget and why and all that jazz?
So initially, the budget that you received, and I know, based on the standard that you put forth, that I couldn't meet it, because, my budget, I think, still, by percentage, is the highest one as far as personal services versus expenses. So, when I look at the contract with the police officers, I can't meet 2%. So you can't give them 2.5 and have me meet 2. So then, subsequent to that, you had the Board of Selectmen negotiated with the police union around the issue of the civil service, and there were some understandings that were met there, and as a result, you saw a funding increase in the budget.
I apologize. Zach, I'm not saying it.
Yes.
Not on the submitted budgets.
Is that the final number, the 5.488?
It's 6 point.
That's my point.
What budget number is it?
Budget 210,
210, thank you.
5,488,905?
Five,
Not the number?
5830723.
It says revised 4/27/17.
Under where? Under submitted 210 police.
583.
April 27th.
723.
April 28th, revised.
Right, chief? Is that the right number?
April 27th.
Says revised budget. Which you further down.
3.
583.
Yeah, if it's dated April 27th, that's when I went
I
back
just wanted to
after
see.
discussions with Zach and rebuilt the budget.
I apologize, Chief.
No problem at all.
Should be 5/8/30.
5/8/30/723. Thank you. I'm a little slow. All right.
That ends up getting about 6.7.
6.2. All right, any questions for the chief regarding that?
Fiscal year 18.
Mr. Chairman, so prior to this adjustment, we had gone through the entire budget at the meeting and explained the increases for the contract and the eligible increase for specific officers for steps as when, and the deputy chief's budget, the chief's budget, so, and we had voted to agree to accept the budget as presented.
Would you like to make that motion, Mr. Schiavi?
So with this adjustment, as Mr. Zachary Taylor, Otis number 12 told us, I will make the motion to accept the adjusted budget.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Nicholson? Any other discussion?
What was the total percentage increase?
6.2.
6.2, okay.
Now, with salaries.
All those in favor for accepting the police department's budget?
Write down the budget number at the bottom.
All those in favor? Unanimous? Thanks, chief, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Have a great night.
You too.
5830723. Next item on the agenda, Selectman Article number 36.
At the Zoom.
Mr. Valani. Article 36 is regarding the establishment of water commissioners and having it be an appointed position by the selectmen. Mr. Villani, if you can just explain, and I want everyone to understand that by no means is this saying that we're going to purchase the water company. This is just about one of the processes, in order to do that, so, Mr.
As
Villani.
everybody knows, we're in negotiation, obviously, with the water company, to possibly purchase the water company. If and when we do purchase the water company, this will allow the board and the town to petition the legislature to special legislation, and then allow the Board of Selectmen to appoint 3 water commissioners, much like we have with the sewer department now. They will then be empowered to act as water commissioners. In addition, they would be empowered under that to appoint a water department manager, obviously, to run. So if and when we acquire it, we gotta be ready to go. And that's all this does. That's very simple.
And it would be followed by elections afterwards.
Exactly, only to the point when
Just
we
like
have
sewer.
our general election, they then would be elected water commissioners,
So there's
just
just,
like
this is just a temporary position until we can have an election in order to elect water commissioners.
But we're gonna have to
just
be
like
ready
sewer.
to go.
Exactly.
And that's,
Move favorable.
thank you.
All right, moved by Aldo, second by Jack, for a favorable recommendation on Article 36.
Question?
Any discussion? Yep.
There's nothing mentioned in the article about a subsequent election, that it's strictly an appointed position.
No,
and
no,
that's
it's an
it.
appointed position until the next general election. Then it
Doesn't
will
say
be
that
elected.
anywhere.
But the legislation, that was the legislation, that's how it will be. Yeah.
All right, sorry.
I think,
Any other discussion?
would you want to reword that maybe, or is it necessary?
Again, I'll talk to town
I
council, but I
think
think,
it's going to raise questions at town meeting,
I think we have it covered, but
Because-
I will make sure.
don't you think?
Good point. Good point, Mike.
Well, if in fact, we end up buying the water company and we appoint 3 water commissioners, is it their initial responsibility to hire a management company to manage the water company, or will that be somebody else to do
They
that?
will be, the legislation would enable them to do that, as I understand it, correct.
That'd be their duty.
Whether it be a water manager or a company, management company, yep.
Any other discussion? With that being said, we have a motion and a second for a favorable recommendation on Article 36. So we'll go to a vote. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Delaney. All right, before we get into budgets, health, Paul, if you can come up. Before we get into budgets, we do have a revision on the highway department budget. At our last meeting, we approved a number for the highway department, and we were given in error a bad number because it was a fully loaded number with health insurance and everything for Scotty's positions. So we went ahead and approved that, or accepted that, excuse me, and the number was too high. So we had to adjust the number, and the new number is, it's gonna make me look.
Hold on one second.
Okay. Another drive.
1,167,257.
1,257,257.
167,257.
So just like I said, this is a number going down because we're pulling out the benefits that was initially included in his number, that Scott accidentally included, and we went and accepted it.
28,000 we removed and did not put it in the benefits, as that's still sufficient as we feel, so it's just reducing it $28.
So it's just reducing it for the,
Personal insurance.
I apologize, I missed the meeting last month. If we're adding people, why aren't they getting benefits?
They are, but it doesn't go in there.
they are, but it's in a different budget,
Overhead.
The health insurance budget.
the health insurance
Okay.
budget.
All right.
This
Got
was
it,
simply
got it,
just
right.
their salary.
I'm thinking of the sewer department, excuse me.
Yep, this is just their salary. So with that being said, I need a motion to accept the new number for
Motion.
highway.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mike, second by Mark. All those in favor for the revised number for highway? Thank you. All right, next department,
Which mic?
SOARs. We gotta move the mics out.
Yeah.
Split them apart. I wanted to have Paul come in. Paul, we went over your budget last time, and I explained all the increases in the rubbish removal costs and that kind of stuff, and everyone was all right with that, but we did have a question about your general expenses. It went up significantly from 70,000 to 100,000 this year. So there was some question on why exactly that happened, so that's why we wanted to have you come in.
One of the only reason for that, Mr. Chairman, was the problem that the difficulty that we're having getting leaves and grass taken away from us. Years ago, it was a sought-after commodity. As a matter of fact, Western Nurseries right in Hopkinton used to actually buy it from us. They'd give us, at the time, $2,000 plus $1,000 in shrubs, in plants, you know, for the highway department or parks department to use around the town. They stopped doing that because of the abundance of grass and leaves they were getting from the towns of Hopkinton and Holliston. We then had Mr. Hood. He volunteered his time to do it for us, and he didn't need it anymore. And then Mr. Kimball actually needed it to mix the compost, because the leaves at the time were turning from, you know, the regular vegetative state to the composting state. And he did it for about 2 or 3 years. Of course, we paid Mr. Hood and Mr. Kimball in the past too, but it was a very small amount, probably for gasoline, maybe $75 to $100 per dumpster, and the dumpsters at the time were about 75 yards, which is almost like double the size of what you see on the transfer station now, which wasn't a bad price at all. And then he doesn't need it anymore. Come to find out, grass and leaves are very difficult to get rid of today. You know, it's to a point in our transfer station where it's hitting a crisis mode, for the simple reason there is actually no place to put them anymore. And as you all know, you know, I'm sure all of you cut your lawn and rake your leaves, and you need some place to you know, to put the grass and leaves if it's not in the back of your yard. It's just it keeps getting filled up. We did get some prices. We put like our own little RFP out, and we got 2 people that were interested. One wanted $10 per yard. Another one wanted $7 per yard. And as you know, there's probably thousands of yards of
He was gonna
yard
pay us
waste there.
$10 a year?
No.
But it was, you know, like I said, it's getting to the crisis point now. The brush is fine. In other words, there's a market for that. What happens, we have a fella come in, he chips the brush, he takes it away, and he uses, and he sends it to Maine where they make pellets, the wood pellets out of it, which is great. But no one's using, you know, no one needs grass and leaves anymore because every community has their own compost site and whatnot. The site at the transfer facility is too small for a compost site. I know Scotty Christofoli up on Asylum Street has enough acreage there, and he did, you know, the leaves that he would take away on the curbside, he uses, he actually puts into the windrows, has the people, his employees turn them over, he wets them, and he does it right. And it, you know, of course, you can make a pile the size of this room into a tenth of that size if you compost properly. And that's what he does. So that's what we need. I mean, that's why I put that extra $30,000 in there, hopefully for either trucking to Asylum Street, or if that isn't a possibility, then someone at least can take some of them away so we can have some relief for the grass cutting season coming up and the future leaf season coming up in the fall.
Because that is one of the biggest questions that everyone raised here, is that, you know, Scotty's got that place up on Asylum Street.
Right.
We just spent X amount of dollars on that huge truck to carry all that stuff up there. We need to use that. So I don't want to be spending money sending it out of town. I wanna send it to Asylum Street, and I wanna use our truck that we just spent a fortune for.
Right.
So that was really what our big discussion was
And we have
about,
2 new people to do it.
and we have 2 new people to do it, good point. Mr.
I,
Shane.
and we talked about this, Paul, at the last meeting. But if you actually think about what we just said, why don't we have people just take the leaves up to Asylum Street?
Well, that's what I was,
As opposed to trucking, taking it to the transfer station?
That was a plan, because we had several conversations with Scott in the past about that. And Scott was really enthused about doing that, but I guess he needed some funds or some plans done, because he wanted to come in from, was it Countryside Drive? As opposed to coming by Asylum Street.
He has a
or
road.
something like that.
There's a road there.
You know, so that's what he was thinking about. And I guess that was about 2 years ago. We asked him to come in a little while ago, and he did, reiterate that he was gonna be, looking for that time and money, or at least some plans that he can get drawn up from an engineering firm to make that a possibility, where that would be the yard waste area for the residents to use. But like I said, right now, we only have like maybe 4 acres of land down there that we utilize and try to utilize the best we could. But I don't know if anybody's been down there recently, and it's just so difficult to maneuver now because the grass and leaves are starting to come out to the road.
Well, and once again, this is an issue that I have, is if when we have that up there, and we have the materials, and we have the manpower, something's falling through the cracks here.
yeah.
It is.
And it bothers me.
And that's something that we need, like, like I say, I mean, it's great to talk about it, but if we could get that into action, because,
Well-
again, we're hitting crisis mode right now.
At this point, let me go to Alan and then over to Mark. At this point, we need to get the 2 of you in a room, and we gotta hash this out.
Right.
And that's really as simple as it is.
I'm in the same place. I have a fundamental problem with taking $30,000 and giving it to somebody, when, to me, sorry to be mean, but you and Scotty, get in a room, figure out how to move the leaves, and save us $30,000.
You know,
Have the residents bring it directly to us.
Well, no, the resident thing may be different,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I know at one point, when we asked, the issue was that unless you have, like, you have people at the transfer station. If you don't have any people on Asylum Street, they may be dumping it, and are you gonna move your transfer station people to Asylum? No. But to me,
Why not?
it's, well, they
Well, do
said
you-
no, because they need them at the transfer station.
Do you charge for the, for grass and leaves?
Yeah.
But wait a minute, guys.
So what,
Why?
if they dump it anyway, it would be.
We have a truck, we have people, we have the technology to move things. Just, with all due respect, just make it happen, you and Scott.
Well, like I said, like I just said a little while ago, we have met in the past several times, and I don't know what happened. And not to throw anybody on the bus, and I'm not,
No.
but.
Who's subcommittee?
With Scotty and I did talk, he says it was one of his priorities that he wanted to get that Asylum Street working.
Yep.
Now, the only thing we have now, like I says, we have thousands of yards of grass and leaves that are around the facility now. We need to get that taken out. What I was gonna suggest, of course, is Asylum Street. I was there a little while ago, and there is, quite a bit of room there. And if we could just get someone to truck it from where we are at the transfer facility to the,
Again, my English fails me sometimes. That's what I said. You and Scott work together, get the leaves moved, and be done. And just whoever's the subcommittee chair,
Is it, Joyce?
Joycey?
I think, yeah.
Joyce.
Make it happen, Joycey.
Back to the other issue, I mean, I thought there was a road from Fisk Mill Road or 140 that goes to Asylum Street, right next to that used car dealership, between there and the dog pound.
Who cares?
No, my point being
It
that.
shouldn't be at our feet here. This ought to be handled
I understand
outside of
that.
this
Well,
forum.
that's, Mark, you're right, just
But my
make
point,
it outside.
gentlemen, my point is that if it means that we take a transfer station person, in addition to the ones that we have at the transfer station, and put them over there, we still save money.
Aldo?
What I'm hearing Paul say is, that's a great plan, to put him up there. But come tomorrow, he needs somebody down there to get something out of there so that he can get more people
Yep.
to come in and fill it up again.
Absolutely.
So, it's all well and good for us to have a plan,
For the
But if we
future.
don't have a plan tonight, he's gotta walk out of here with
That's
some,
exactly right.
some idea of how we're going to
So, yeah,
take care of that, what's down there.
yeah.
We're gonna put Joycey on it.
Well,
I think we need to force the issue. I think we need to say, look, get together. How long does it take, like, for two intelligent people?
Well, like I was mentioning, I think that, a lot of, we're missing the point here. We have been meeting, okay, and, myself and the 3 board members. And again, Scott is an elected official. He has no boss to say, you better do this tomorrow. I don't have that authority. I don't think any of my board members have that authority. So again, Scott was making a bona fide attempt to get his plan in action.
Yep.
And where he is right now, at that point, I don't know. But the last time I spoke to him, he was making an aggressive effort to get that plan, carried out.
yeah, and as I talked to you last time, Joycey's on it. She's gonna take care of it.
Scott didn't have 2 extra people until last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Well, that's what I was saying too, Albert, because like I said, now we're talking with his busy season. You're talking brush cutting and stream cleaning,
Paul.
road patching, whatever he does.
We can come up with a million reasons why we're all too busy, being busy to be busy. Done. It's $30,000 of our money that we can save. Give Joycey a chance.
What will make myself and the Board of Health happy if we do not have to spend that $30,000?
Right.
It's, to me, it wasn't a luxury, it was a necessity.
Yeah.
So it's something that I put in because it was a necessity. Again, if it comes to be where we don't have to spend it, Scotty's gonna help us out.
Would you
Fantastic.
be comfortable if there was a plan in place that Scott gave you definitive,
Absolutely.
and then you would just pass
That's
over
what it
the
is, I'll
article?
be right in there. I had no definitive answer.
Right.
Speaking to his immediate need, which is what you're referring to, 2 different situations. The immediate need, is there any justification for an emergency transfer for a smaller amount to relieve the basically emergency situation over at the existing transfer station, so that gives Scott and him time to work out the longer plan?
Well,
If
the
it
money,
isn't true,
this
if it is
30
in
we're
fact
talking
in-
about is to start in July 1st, anyway.
Right,
So he'd be
right,
paying for whatever he does right now from his current budget.
Right, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
If you have an agreement with dates, Scotty's always been good to his word. If he says, I'll start doing this and it's acceptable, then I would say pass the dang thing over.
Absolutely.
If he doesn't live up to his word,
I think
then,
you will, but
then that would be a first, and you could come back to us for an emergency transfer.
Sure.
But I tend to believe the man who's been good to his word ever since will.
I do too.
Absolutely.
Can you come back next month with a proposal?
Sure.
That'll be good. So why don't we just table this now until
No,
next month?
no, we can't table this. This
Because we have to give a recommendation.
This is in his budget.
This is exactly right. This is for Article 4 for his
So
budget.
we should revise, by motion would be revise the budget down, right? And if you need to do this immediate, Paul, it doesn't make any sense to have it in your budget anyway.
That's July 1st.
Like I said, right now, like, if people come Saturday with grass and leaves, I'm not gonna throw them out.
Right, of course, right.
So it's not something that has
Well, I
to be
guess,
done right
if
now.
it's,
So the
let's
July
say we
1st
left
doesn't
in your
help.
budget, and you gave us your word, that if you Joycey gets you a plan, you won't spend it. Why wouldn't we believe you? You've done it before,
Right.
and you'll just let it fall to free cash.
We've got 3 months, May, June, part of July.
We got plenty of time to figure it out.
Right, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Take the man on his word. He says, look, give me my 30. If Scott lives up to his end, I won't spend
We
it.
don't need it, right,
And you'll let it drop.
absolutely, as we have in the past, like you said.
Yeah, you've done it in the past.
So Albert, am I assuming that you're making
My
a motion
motion
to
favorable.
accept the budget
with
as
his word.
proposed?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you. Second by Phil. All those in favor for accepting the Health Department budget as stated? Ooh, making me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in favor. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much for coming in, Paul. I appreciate
Thanks
it.
a lot for your time.
Who, Walter, Winston?
Who was opposed, Mark?
The money out of the budget.
Soars and Scabby.
Any sense?
All right.
40 million.
You guys ready?
We should have forced the issue.
I want to force it down.
Don't give them.
I wanna see how much they're gonna talk about this.
You know, if you're ready to force things, this is your chance right here.
And we're gonna add 3%
Write
to
that
that
down,
next year.
write that down.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, come on.
My memory's not
go.
that great.
All right,
I
last,
told you to write it down.
last department we need to look at the budget for is the school department. Can I have a report from the subcommittee chairman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I like to make a motion. I move that the school department budget be set at $45,788,878.
Second.
All right, I'll open it up for discussion.
What does that
Chairman, we
mean?
got to that number. The school department submitted a budget of $46,252,800, which was 4.9% after numerous discussions.
Wait a minute.
And I think our subcommittee is willing to look at that number favorably, except that there are significant amount of money that needs to be reduced from that budget for one-time ads for last year, which brings us down to the 45,788. I can go through, and I put it up on the.
Yep.
Is it on the drive?
Everything is on the drive. Everything that we're gonna go over, Mark's spreadsheet, as well as the presentation that the schools are gonna be doing, is even a longer one, is all up in the subcommittee folder for education. Go ahead.
So, at the end of the day, when departments get one-time additions for their budget to satisfy a need for that fiscal year, we put it in there, and then the following year, we take it out. I mean, Al made a significant amount of discussion at last meeting with the tax collector. They wanted to do a special project for $1,500. We put it in the budget with the understanding that it's gonna come out next season, or next fiscal year. So, the school committee has numbers in there, and I can go over them, for tables and books and furniture, and that were one-time ads. They've already spent the money, and it's, should come out of their budgets and return to the town. Also in there are maintenance for Middle School East. Middle School East was, or will be, turned over to the town in July. The school department averaged about $135,000 a year between utilities and maintenance costs and custodial, et cetera, to maintain that building, and that ought to come out of their budget and go over to the town side, so we can in fact maintain the budget as well. Plus, the finance director recommended and asked for a 10% reduction in electrical utility costs because of a new contract that was signed by the town administrator for the town, that will reduce the electric costs about at least 10%. So we went through and looked at the numbers, and I got the numbers from the finance director for budgeted costs, and FY17 budgeted number was $680,000 for the school department, and so we took 10% of that at $68,000, thus reducing the total number by $463,922.
Would you cover that again, please, Mike?
Yes, I will. Seriously?
Yes, seriously.
Okay. One-time ads last year.
I'm talking electricity.
Oh, the electricity costs. The electricity costs for the school department were budgeted at $680,000 last year, this year, FY17. So 10% of $680,000 is $68,000, which was the recommendation by the finance director.
Question?
Yes, sir.
680 includes Woodland?
680 includes a $100,000 budget for Woodland. That number was increased from the year before by 30 grand. Now, you're gonna, is that enough? I don't know if it's enough. I know that they're over budget on that for a number of different reasons. And the discussion that this subcommittee had with the school department was that we would take 2 years' worth of numbers for the school, for Woodland, so we can get real numbers and adjust each year as we had to go. What else did you want to hear?
Does anyone else have questions from Mark before I ask for the schools to make a little presentation?
You have a motion on the
Is
floor.
that, and your committee voted on that number, Mark? The 45,788, 878.
Correct.
Yep. Any other discussion?
Yeah, the numbers, I want to hear both sides, because the numbers got me confused. Article 27, we voted You said it was 80,000 to maintain middle school east. but-
No, we raised it to 135, if you recall.
Right, but we said we thought it was 80. The discussion was 80, and we raised it to 135 to be safe.
No,
So-
we raised it to 135, Al, because the numbers I got from Kathy Perry over the last 4 years was average about 135,000.
Okay,
That's why the number went up.
So,
We have a motion.
yep. We need, if, we don't vote on,
well, wait a minute, for the vote,
Discussion.
I asked a question. I'd like to hear the other side of this. I mean, I am,
That's part of the discussion, yeah, sure.
well, but if we go
Yeah,
and
that's part of the
vote, it's
discussion.
over.
Right.
Right, yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
No,
I
no,
mean,
no, I agree.
protocol says once you vote, discussion is stopped.
Correct.
Well,
So all I'm asking is, you got all these people here.
I have no problem with that, except that they've already submitted a budget at 46,252, and I'm amending that number to 45,788, and that's what the vote is.
Yes. I'm asking to hear
Fine.
the whole story.
That
We
should
should
not
hear
happen.
from the school committee.
That's what I'm saying.
that's why I
To
had them,
vote
Mr. Chairman?
before we hear from them doesn't seem right.
Mr. Chairman,
yep. Yep, Mike.
I'd just like to ask if the parties here agree with Mark's number or not. You do not?
We do not agree.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. McIntyre. I'd like to hear from you.
Perfect. I just want to give a high-level overview of the budget process, and I'm going to try to be brief. I think it's important to understand the budget formulation process for the school. We actually start this process in October and in November with principals and directors receiving guidelines for the budget from the town. And we have them meet with our curriculum team leaders and faculty to develop an initial budget proposals. The principal and department head budgets are due December 5th. We meet with each principal and director in the central office to review the budget proposals and new initiatives. We bring those forward to the school committee, who makes an initial recommendation, and that happened on January 7th. The budget proposal then undergoes several reviews and iterations based on discussion with the finance subcommittee and other stakeholders. The initial proposal began at 6.6% and then was reduced through this process to 2.1% for the general budget and 2.5% for special education and English language learners. The level service for the school year of 17-18 would be $46,697,608, which is a 5.9% increase. We reduced that amount to the 2.41% for the general budget and 2.5% for special education and English learners, which that request is $46,252,800, which I believe is the difference that Mark cited. Our salary and contract obligations are $1.599,747,000. The bulk of that coming from the teacher union contract, which is $1,501,656. The ASME union obligation is $64,477 over the last fiscal year, and the non-union is $33,614. A lot of this is driven by an out-of-district increase. We had 4 students move into the district after April 1st, 2016, for a total cost of $450,000. The total increase for out-of-district expenses is $803,974 year over year. We've taken some cost-cutting measures that were included in your packet. One thing I want to just highlight is we've reduced 17 positions basically through attrition, so there'll be no, what's the word I'm looking for?
Health insurance.
Thank you. That was unanimous. And that could potentially reduce the liability by $314,465.73 to the town. That number isn't reflected in the budget request because that's not part of our budget, but I just wanted to point that out to the committee. Another issue that's come up over the years that we've talked about with the subcommittee is the school choice numbers. And this past year, the outgoing increase was 1.01%, which is the lowest increase of students out in the last 5 years. And the incoming increase in was 26.25% higher, which is the largest increase in the last 3 years. So we're continuing to do a pretty aggressive marketing campaign to improve those numbers, and we're going to continue to do that. And that's really a big goal of mine and the committees. I'm just gonna hit you with one last number, is basically our proposal right now is 2.41% to the general budget, 2.5% to special education, for a total of $46,252,800. The committee met the school committee met prior to this meeting, and we'd like to offer an additional reduction of $150,000 based on the proposal that Mark presented as the education subcommittee chair, and that would put our new proposal at $46,102,800. Kathy, do you have those-
Say that one more time.
Oh, sure. It's $46,102,800. And Kathy, do you have the percentages for the special ed and general budget?
I do. So the overall increase we're requesting is 4.563, and the impact is 2.24 to general budget and 2.33 to special ed and EL learners.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, Mark.
As I said earlier, the 4.9% number that the school committee worked down to was not an issue. I believe our committee understands those numbers and agrees to those numbers. What we wanted to talk about after those numbers were the one-time ads that should come out of their budget. That's the issue, not whether the 4.9% was right or wrong. I think the 4.9% is a good number to deal with, considering ELL, SPED, and contractual obligation. So the 150,000 is I don't know where that number came from. I did make a proposal to the school committee that the 463,922 be cut in half and return half this year and half next year. I would be willing to look at that, and I'm sure this committee would accept that as well.
But just so that, but for people who aren't following, who aren't looking at the numbers, the school has just said from what they previously had presented to the subcommittee, that they've changed that by lowering their ask by 150,000.
What's the delta now between the two?
466, 300,000.
400,000 roughly, yeah.
300,000. Phil?
300,000.
Yeah, I just want to make a point. The school committee did start with a budget that was 6.66, okay? And as a subcommittee, I'm a member of the subcommittee, we did work with them, and they worked with us to get to 4.9, okay? We have this 400,000 of difference for non-reoccurring items. I have to tell you, in the interest of disclosure, that 400,000 is really disputed by the school committee. They're saying they are not non-reoccurring items, okay? So in the interest of compromise, I think the 150 is a compromise to say, yeah, it's disputed as to what's non-reoccurring, but we will reduce our budget by 150,000. So I wanted to make that point.
All these numbers, you've got my head spinning. For a dozen years, we've dealt with the budget, and it's been 2 point something, whatever. And we've said SPED and ELL was separate. Last year, we made a mistake, because we should have gotten back to the town what the SPED went down. We didn't. So to me, the 150 is paying back for last year and putting us back on track to what we've always said. Your budget stays, it's number 2.
Right.
But it's 2.4. And ELL and SPED is separate. Giving back the 150, I agree with Phil. Okay, you're not agreeing to it, but it's a gesture.
I'm sorry.
Right? That's what I'm hearing, is you're saying no, but we'll give it to you because we ought to work together. To me, I'm fine with it.
And I think that's an accurate assessment.
And at the end of the day, it puts us back on track to what's worked for at least a dozen years. And hopefully, if it ever goes down again, we won't have the same argument that if ELL and SPED goes down, I'm giving you my word, I will fight you tooth and nail if you don't return it. Because that's only fair. Okay, now we waited a year to get it back, now we'll get it back. But at that point, I'd say, it seems like this is what we've been doing for a dozen years, the one times, whether they're there or not, they're there every year. Whether you buy tables at Woodland or buy tables somewhere else, you can call them one time, I don't understand it, I'm not smart enough to figure out all those details, but it seems like it's worked for a dozen years, let's get back on what's been working.
And to Al's point, I don't know who read that 27-page document that I put up on the drive, in which the school argued on the particular expenses that we reviewed earlier, and what their defense, per se, was on those particular articles. Whether there was 140,000 in there that were, renewals on subscriptions and that type of stuff, where, that is a reoccurring article because those subscriptions come up on a yearly basis. There's been, a question about other things on that list, and once again, if you took the time to read the 27-slide presentation that they put together, they had their defense for it. You were arguing, who's right here, and we're at a critical point. One second. We're at a critical point here where we need to figure out what we're gonna do with your budget. I appreciate the fact that you guys moved, because I know that your heels were in the ground, okay? I know you are, because, we haven't had conversations a lot, okay? And I do appreciate, I know that you guys were pretty firm on your number, and, I think that that's a fair gesture for you guys to do that, and I think that this committee should do the same, so.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think I was clear. The non-recurring costs are books, furniture, science kits, cafeteria tables, curriculum material that you buy once, period. Those are non-recurring costs. I mean, I don't think anybody can argue with that.
Well,
What
you
does that
guys, so
amount
we bought one books in 1980, you still using the same books?
What happens
That
is
was
these.
last year.
Yeah, I understand. You don't think that there's books from that?
Different books.
They're different
Mr.
books.
Chairman, I'm not arguing whether they were books or not books. What I'm arguing about is, it's a one-time expense. If it's a one-time expense, it should be covered under one-time expense accounts, which is choice. Not put in a budget on an annual basis to be compounded every year going forward without it coming out. Sorry.
Right, that's what
Second
happens.
is,
Well,
excuse
Mark,
me,
wait a minute, we changed that 7 years ago. You and I changed that and told them, don't throw choice at our face, what you can spend and what you can't. We told them, as far as we're concerned, choice is a revenue. It's yours, but do with it what you want.
but they're not doing what they want. The point is, they're not spending it on non-recurring issues. And that's what we asked them to do.
Aldo?
Fine, Mr. Chairman. I stand by what I have.
Just a question of the items that you left. Are any of those items consumables? You had the science kits, you had the books. Is in this, is it a science kit that you use and abuse and?
It's probably got a 4 to 6 year lifespan.
Okay, so they're not consumable.
In a sense, we're repeating them every year. That's correct. The amount that Mark's referencing is about $68,000 from that full amount.
None of that is consumable.
And we're not disputing
What
that.
I'm saying maybe my consumable idea is, I realize at some point it's gonna fall apart.
Correct.
But is there a portion of that that needs to be replaced each year in order for that particular item to be useful?
I would say no to the 68,000, but the remainder of I think it's a 464,000-ish number. We're disputing various aspects of that full number.
Kevin, what he's saying about books, I agree with Mark. You're gonna buy a book, it's gonna last 7, 8 years. You don't
Correct.
need to buy the same books this year. But
there'll be different
don't you need
books.
books from Stacy, Nick?
Absolutely.
See, and that's the point where
And that's
I don't
yeah,
understand.
exactly.
This book may be one time every 7 years, but
Correct.
there's 5 other schools that need different books that are one time.
And just like the cafeteria tables you referenced, the furniture needs will rotate across buildings over the course of, 7 or 8
Yes,
years.
well, we had furniture budgeted under capital, we threw it out. So I'm assuming you're picking it up somewhere.
Absolutely,
That's what
Kids
you guys,
still have to sit down and eat.
absolutely.
Under general budget, and as well as, Mr. Chairman, if I may, as well as things such as using school choice for one-time items. As an example, actually, in this budget proposal, for instance, that we needed, I believe it was cheerleading mats. We used choice money to be able to pay for those.
Scotty,
Just
we
as
had
a-
that argument, Mark and I had that
agree
argument
with you.
7 years ago, saying, stop confusing what we can buy, what we can't. It's money, it's in your hands, deal with it. If it goes down, you got less, but deal with it.
Mr. Marias?
No, I was going to make that exact same point, so Al jumped on it. You know, when we went through the one-time expenses, we recognized that there were some one-time expenses in there, but our estimate was around 107,000, the number that Mark's coming up with. And middle school east is a great example. The real number for middle school east last year was $50,000. That's what we spent to maintain that school.
Excuse me, Mr. Marias. 2 years ago, you maintained that school, and for years, we had money in that budget for middle school east.
It was
full
open
amount.
when it was
We
being
didn't reduce
used.
your budget last year to $50,000.
We didn't give any, you didn't give us anything in the budget. for
No,
middle
that's
school
not
east
true.
last year.
No, that's not true. We gave you 90,000 or whatever the 2 months was. We gave you money in that budget. We absolutely did for August and September, for July and August. Absolutely. Okay? And what you're saying to me is that all those years that you maintained that school, that cost you $135,000 a year to maintain with maintenance costs, utility costs, custodial costs, was never in your budget?
That has now been moved to other schools.
Oh, but that's not the point. You
But it
moved
is
the
the
school.
point. You're
I'm
looking at the
sorry.
full school budget.
I'm sorry, you moved the school back to the town. The town now has to support that school with those same numbers. So you're asking the town to foot a $135,000 bill that you already have the money for, which I don't think is fair. Because you're
That's
not
not an
using the
accurate
school
statement.
anymore. I'm sorry?
That's not an accurate
It's an
statement.
absolutely accurate statement.
Why-
What's
why-
not accurate
Boys,
about it?
I don't want to do a back and forth, okay? Just let Ms. Marias finish, and then Mark will
Yeah,
get
I'm-
back to you.
I'm
finished.
Aldo?
Just ask, yeah. In the number that you're proposing, the 46,102,800, I believe was the number.
Yep.
I have a particular interest in the maintenance money. Is there maintenance money in there? Well, I'm gonna be very straightforward. I want to be sure that the new Woodland building receives all the preventive maintenance it needs on an annual basis. I believe it was around $80,000 or $90,000 was the additional number. Is that money still there? And maybe the more important question, are we spending that money at Woodland? Because I know we have a bottom line budget versus a line item budget.
I can answer that definitively, although it's yes to both of your questions.
That does make me happy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. No, can I go, Mike, he had his hand up early.
Just two questions for the chairman of the subcommittee, Mr. Shane, if I may. Mark, the number 45,788,878 was the number that your subcommittee approved to come to this committee. Who was on your subcommittee?
Bill, Mike, and Jeff.
Was the vote unanimous to accept that number?
Vote was unanimous not to accept the 46,252,8.
That wasn't my question.
No, you're right.
Well,
That
I'll
was the
ask the
vote.
question again. Was the vote unanimous?
That was the vote,
What was the vote?
not to accept the 46,252,8. So
Well, what was your recommendation?
Our proposal is 45,788.
And did your subcommittee take a vote on that number?
No.
Mark asked me about this number earlier, and I fully agree with his number. I think it's a very fair number. We originally came at the school asking them to come in at 44,334,000, and we have come up a significant amount since then. So I really do believe it's a fair number. The town has a 2.5% mandate. This is the biggest budget for the town, and it becomes very difficult to stay within that 2.5% mandate if year after year after year, our biggest department comes in at 4% and higher. So I would ask members to support the amended number at 45,788,000.
Okay, a couple of things I want to point out first. Okay? The SPED and ELL number is a very, very large number. So when you talk about 4.9, which now it's down to 4.5?
5.6. Yep.
Yep. A large portion of that number is SPED and ELL, 2.33% of that. So you're talking that they are a little over 2% on the rest of their budget. To me, with what they're doing in their initiatives, I think that's acceptable. The investment in our schools is a very important thing. I think all of us agree that. To what level it's debatable, but to go a little over 2% for a budget like this, with the amount of employees that you have and the contracts that have to be met. Because everyone knows employees in all our budgets are the biggest portion. That's why we always fund these other departments when they can have contractual obligations, we go ahead and fund it. Well, how is it different for the schools? Because their contractual obligations have to be met. Okay? Well, you do it in every other department, why should they be different? So to me, for them to come in at a little over 2%, I think that's a lot of hard work by them. I think it's a lot of hard work by our subcommittee in getting them down, because you guys were a lot higher. Okay? And I think that a lot of hard work from both sides has gotten us to where I think we need to be. And I appreciate, like I said, you guys going down, and I think we should consider giving a little bit too, because I think it's for the benefit of the community.
I think we have given.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Mr. Soares and Mr. Shane. We have come down a lot. We have gone up a lot. We've gone up, you know, so we have met already, I think, a fair number. To me, to Mike's point, that we keep on dipping in, it's like, this, the proposal as well, because the town has the money to come out of stabilization and levy. That's not an argument for me, because what happens next year and the year after, to your point about that, it's like, we keep on adding that and adding that and adding that. Eventually, that's gonna run out. You know, it says, well, that's not a lot of money for the taxpayers to afford. I don't go for that either. I mean, you know, my parents are on a fixed income. It's like, guess what? Every little bit digs into that fixed income, so I don't buy into that. There's just a little bit that for all the taxpayers to afford. I think it's a fair number. The 45,788 is a fair number, and I would support that number.
I mean, the library was at 2.2% too. Should we relook at that one?
It's a matter of scale. It's a matter of scale.
That was, I apologize, that was,
What's your point?
that if you're a little over 2%, then then we don't accept it?
We've accepted every single budget so far.
Exactly, and if you look at
As I said
their,
at the beginning, 4.9% was an acceptable number. Without taking anything out is not fair.
sped,
All I'm saying.
I know, and they just took 150,000 out.
It's not even enough.
With sped and ELL taken out, your budget went up 2.2%.
I'm not arguing that. The sped and the yellow numbers, Mr. Chairman, I thought were fine.
Exactly, so their budget is 2.2% going up.
But, Mr. Chairman, we're setting a precedent. It's an unfortunate precedent, but when we put money into budget that are one-time deals, or ask for money back that we rightly deserve, the town deserves, the taxpayers deserve, and we decide to negotiate with that, I find that difficult, right? I find it difficult to do, because now we have to go to back to every single department and say, okay, you know that one-time ad, forget it. And you can compound that going forward, which is what happens here in the school department.
Yeah, Chris, you know, the issue is not the budget amount. I think we agreed on the 4.9, so that's the budget. The issue is the non-reoccurring items, okay? At one point, we thought the non-reoccurring items were 1.7 million, okay? And then we worked with the school committee, and that was reduced to some 400,000, okay? But when we were at 1.7, you know, those really weren't very pleasant meetings, because to have potential of 1.7 as non-reoccurring is not a good thing. And I agree with the chairman. We've had a principle here on non-reoccurring items for years, okay? So now we're down to 450,000. Unfortunately, you don't have this sheet. But of that.
It's on the chart.
Is it on?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Expenses, contractual and technology is 139,000. I think, you know, Mark and I just agreed that that shouldn't be a non-reoccurring item. So now your non-reoccurring items are down to 300,000, okay? So I just wanted to make the committee aware of that. And the other issue, and I think this,
100,000.
well, we were at 450 and it's now 140.
I'm not, forget about the utilities in the middle school east, those are not non-reoccurring.
Well,
So it's 100 grand is what they said.
It is, the non-recurring are really 100 grand. So I want to make sure that the committee understands that, okay? And the difference really is the electric reduction of 10% and the maintenance and utilities at East.
At East.
That is really the concern of the chairman, okay? And So I'd like to go back at those two specific items, and if you could give us some direct feedback on those items, I think that would be helpful.
Kathy, can you speak to the electricity?
Essentially, as we all know, Woodland is a much bigger and complex building than East. East essentially had your boilers and your electricity or lights. At Woodland, we have very complex systems, and we are triple the square footage of East. We acquired the building from the building committee a little bit later in the school year. Our first invoice for utilities for Woodland became September. From September through the current invoice, we have received our typical Woodland annual expenses around $70,000, and 8 invoices in from Mass Electric. We are at $134,000. We still have 2 months left, and next year we'll have to capture those 2 additional months. So as you can see, the building is much larger. We're not at a 10% reduction. We're actually much higher on our utilities, mainly because of the building and the complexity of the systems.
So although the rate has dropped 10%, you're accurate. The usage has increased, and that usage has offset that reduction, so it's actually costing us more in the end.
And I'm not arguing that point at all, okay? That was not the direction from the finance director. The direction was that 10% of the FY17 budget was to reduce the utilities by 10% of the FY17 budgeted number. Whether Woodland or not is more expensive to run is yet to be determined. And I'm not arguing, and I said that, on an annual basis, we can go back and look at those numbers and see where the adjustments need to be. And I think over 2 years, we'll have a pretty good idea of what the cost of Woodland are, without solar panels on top of the building. Now, we put in an extra $30,000 in the electrical costs, the utility costs for Woodland for this year, and they're running over. Now, you gotta admit that the first 4 months of the year, the lights were on 24/7, because they had an issue, they had a software issue, so that skewed the number a little bit. But I don't have a problem with discussing the cost of maintaining the new Woodland school at a legitimate rate as we go through 2 years' worth of usage and make adjustments on an annual basis. I think that's only fair, right? But I don't think it's fair to take the amount of money that was slated for middle school east and move it over to Woodland just because it's there.
Well, I think that's fair, but I'm gonna take a common sense approach, and I'm gonna look at middle school each, which probably had 1 plug in every room, to Woodland, who has 32 computers. So my point is, I do agree with you that we need to look at Woodland in 2 years and adjust, but they need to get through the next 2 years, and then we may have to lower it.
But we can manage that, and we've managed it on every other department that had issues, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
The directive was 10% on departments that had utility costs, electric utility costs, and that's $68,000.
And those are all in the same buildings that they've always lived in, so we
No.
knew what those buildings cost.
Negative.
Yes.
Negative.
This is a whole new building, whole new cost.
FY17 budgeted number for utilities was 0. Okay, we budgeted $0 for middle school east for utilities, electrical costs, because they weren't gonna use it.
Yep.
Right, and they did use some. We increased the number for Woodland by 30,000, plus we gave them an extra 90,000 in the Woodland school.
Right.
As an addition, because that's what the building committee recommended. So we added that to the maintenance budget,
Right,
the overall budget for Woodland.
from the old one to the new one, so they
Right.
got new
Correct.
money.
And look at the usages that they're using, it's significant.
I noticed on the list that you have, are any of those technology and maintenance issues reoccurring?
Are you talking about the contractual line out
Contracts,
there?
these are-
Yes.
He's
Take that
he's
out.
gonna take that off.
We're gonna take it out.
Gonna take the
Okay,
that one's
140 out.
gone, okay,
That's what I was
that's
saying, you're down
all
at
right.
300.
All right, that's fine.
But I'm sorry, I don't disagree with the 4.9%. They came at it the right way. I don't disagree with the non-recurring 107,000, not an issue, that's absolutely right. All right, and the recommendation from this subcommittee is that they use choice money for that going forward. Okay, they have $900,000 in choice money, and they get 500,000 on average every year going forward. We'd like to see more. And the 135,000 for the maintenance cost of middle school east is an item that's in their budget. It's always been in their budget, they maintain that school, And now the town needs to maintain it, so I think that money needs to come back to the town so we can maintain it. That's where we're at.
One number I kind of take issue with is when we break up the percentage of the increase and say that, you know, two and a half came from sped and two and something came from another direction. That's not year over year. It didn't. Do you know what the general budget went up year over year?
That is year over year.
That is
It
year over
It's year over year. That's what we've always done.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying year over year. What was the percentage increase
For which piece?
for non-sped?
For non-sped, right now, it's 2.24, what we're
And for
proposing.
sped?
For sped, it's 2.33.
Okay, but those can't be year over year because your overall went up 4.5%.
Right.
Right, so,
Right.
basically, a percent is basically about 400 and, how many thousand?
Right, but
Kath?
percentages average, they don't add.
This is the compromise number.
Right, but what I'm saying
It's
is,
only 4.9.
So-
which
if
is-
half your budget.
It's still 2.5 or whatever.
Exactly,
Not 4.
right, not 4.5. So what I'm asking is, how much
So basically,
year over
so
year did
basically,
sped
just to be
increase
honest,
and
so-
how much year
yeah,
over
so
year
let me answer your question there. A big chunk of the special ed increase is based on the out-of-district increase, which is about 800 and, I've got it on the slide here, 804,000, which is roughly, that alone was about 2%. The other difference in sped costs were kind of incremental, basically.
I'm still not hearing the answer to my question, though. I'm asking, year over year, non-sped costs, what is the percentage increase just in that one line item?
So it's basically the 2.24%, which is about,
That's not how.
it's about 900,000, give or take. I don't, I can't do the math in my head exactly, but it's about 900,000. The other one is a little more than that. And that's on the total, that's based on the total amount.
We can stay here all night. We can go through, because I will agree, cafeteria tables memorial. It's not reoccurring.
Correct.
It's not. But someday you'll need cafeteria tables Brookside.
Correct.
Then
You
you
know-
put it in the budget.
But you see, again, here's my problem.
And this is 68.
If we start putting in one-times and trying to take them in, take them out, we're gonna end up this way every silly year. Years ago, we said, we're not gonna deal with this. You got a 2 point something on what Mike's asking. Deal with it. In sped and ELL, we want real numbers, except for last year, 1 year out of 12. We want real numbers, because they always go up. We'll fund that separate on a cash basis. You need X dollars for sped and ELL next year, that's what we fund. To sit here and say, well, you owe me $50 and you owe me 30 cents, and Scott, you're buying coffee, it's mind-boggling to me. I don't wanna hear one time in and out every year. What I'm hearing is 2 point something percent on your general budget. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then sped.
It's not accurate.
Okay, it's not accurate. Then we need to understand, because if it's not accurate, because when I looked, I mean, the discussions we had, I said, you're not going up 5%, you're going up 7 or 8. If you put in the Woodland mortgage payment this year, if you put in healthcare, we fund those separate. But if you really wanted to look at what we're investing in the school,
And choice, don't forget choice.
and choice.
1.2 million.
That's what I'm saying, Mark. If you put everything in, and how many times Scotty plows your yard and the Parks Department cut your grass, but we've never done that. What we said is, take the year to year, the piece Mike's asking about, and manage it.
Correct.
And frankly, I'll disagree again, Kathy will hate me, but contractual obligations, no. The contract deals with the survivors. You wanna give teachers 10% raises, go right ahead, but there'll be a lot fewer of them. So I don't buy that argument at all, we never have. We've said, you manage the best you can, but if you give 3 and 4% with the chutes and the ladders and all that, well, then you have less people. So you had to cut 17 aides out. Sorry, I don't feel excited about that. I hate losing people, but you had to do what you have to do to bring in the budget at 2 point something. And we just voted 6% for police,
7, 8, 8.
right? So it's not like we're holding hard and fast to a rule.
Hey, can we at least listen to when people talk on the committee so you can, give them the
That's okay.
respect?
That's okay.
Thank you,
Forget
Mr.
it.
Chairman. I yield the floor to,
No,
Al.
it just,
But who
this
didn't put
has
his
worked.
hand up, by the way.
I did.
Okay.
I did, I waited.
I would really like to see, Mr. Chairman, and I don't know if it's possible, for the subcommittee to come back with a unified number. It appears as if there's some disagreement among the subcommittee members. They've never really voted on a bottom line, and it would make this whole effort a lot easier. But I don't know if that's feasible. I don't know if that's doable.
It's not feasible. We have to do Article 4.
Getting late. Good suggestion, though, Bob.
Good try.
I mean,
I don't
you know,
why we
I
don't
look
stay
at
with
these
what we've
things,
done
is
for
it
a dozen
that
years.
hard, Phil, to discern what is a reoccurring and non-reoccurring expense?
Not
It
from
can't
our-
be that difficult.
Not from our perspective, it's not.
Well,
Not from theirs either, they have the same agreement.
well, it's really not I mean, it's, in a sense, you have this 100,000 that I think everyone agrees on, which is the, you know, the science kits and the textbooks and the math textbooks, and it's a question whether they're reoccurring or not, but everyone kind of agrees that's reoccurring.
Non-recurring.
Non-reoccurring.
Non-reoccurring.
So, but the issue really becomes the 10% on the electric, the 68,000, and then the maintenance and utilities for the 135. Those seem to be the, and those, I guess, well.
Is there
the-
consensus among
The
your
10% is a mandated number, that's not a non-reoccurring item. So
Am I accurate when I say there is not consensus among your committee on those issues?
I guess I'm the only one who's, I think there is consensus, except for me.
Well, that's non-consensus.
Same but different.
Mr. DeVito, I think there is consensus, I just think that some of the members are coming at it from a different perspective, that's all. And it's some of the new members. And I take responsibility for that, for having less of a discussion at certain times than we should. But I think that when we voted to not approve the 4.9 was based on the fact that there was no give on the $350,000 that's left as take-back. That was the issue. So our point was, we're not gonna accept that until we negotiate or come to an agreement on these other numbers. That's where we're at,
But
and
you
that's
got
why
it.
we're here. No, I didn't
Mark,
get
I
it.
agree. 350, you dug your heels in, subcommittee dug their heels in, and now you came back and said, you'll give in. You're not,
150,000.
it's one of these things
150,000.
where
No,
we're
they're gonna give in 150,000. That's not giving.
out of 300.
Out of 300.
Yeah, so you're splitting the difference.
Okay, that's, I mean, how many years we've come
I'm
in
sorry,
where,
this is not a contract negotiation, in my opinion, all right? This is hard and fast numbers, if the facts. If you're willing to accept the facts, and you're willing to accept the fact that it should come out of their budget. If you're not willing to accept the facts, then the fact is, all of it should stay in their budget and call it a day. I'm good either way, whatever you guys decide.
The facts are that they saved significant money on health insurance for the 17 people that
And we
they
spent
laid off.
$1.4 million in
but we're back to the
choice account.
nitpick,
The
Chris.
facts are, the electricity, that's exactly right. So at this point, it's whether you're gonna make the commitment, they said that they would come up 150,000 out of the 300,000. It's just a question of whether we are willing, in good gesture, in good faith, do the same thing for our 150,000.
It'll be like a lawyer settlement. I won't admit I'm wrong, but I'll compromise.
That's exactly
And
right.
let's get on with life. You will not admit you're wrong, but you'll compromise. Isn't that what we've done for how many years?
All right.
But I'll tell you what,
Not gonna make any comment
this
on
idea of, there are no non-reoccurring expenses in my mind anymore. Next year, I don't even wanna hear that word, because I don't wanna know that the tables now at Memorial are good, but the dog, the sheep and the cat, I mean, come on.
I think the school
I
committee
disagree
is,
with that.
I think the
I
school committee
disagree
knows
with
the word reoccurring
And
is
it just
probably a bad word
compounds.
in here now,
Every
so
year it
everybody
does.
can
If
use
you're not
it.
gonna agree to it next year, don't agree to it this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so at this point, and there's a motion on the floor for Mark's, well, actually.
Yep.
The motion is.
But wait a minute, I need to, first of all, because your subcommittee did not vote on that number.
That's right, we can
No, he
vote
doesn't have
as a
to.
full committee, I don't
No,
have.
I
to.
understand,
Doesn't
that's
have
why
to.
I,
Mark made a motion, it was seconded.
I just wanted to point that out.
That's fine, as a full committee, we can vote on it.
So anyway,
Would
Yep.
you kindly explain, at least I believe we need to explain, if the number presented by Mark is the number that he made in his motion, if that's not an agreeable number, And if the school committee's number that they proposed, the $46,000 number, is the number that is preferred, then.
6 million.
46.
You almost fall for Elvis Drake.
Nice move, Alvin.
Nice
What we're trying to do
All right.
is, we're
I
trying to
understand what you're saying.
put you in the
And
game.
there'll be another motion with the new
Right,
number.
we have to defeat the initial motion.
That's correct.
Yes, you're right.
I
Then-
need, I need to
then-
correct that motion.
Hmm?
I need to correct the number in that motion, Mr. Chairman.
For the-
If you choose to correct it,
No, I-
otherwise we're gonna vote on that motion.
No, I'd like to
Let him
correct it.
correct the
You'd like to correct it?
Taking out the 139, 149 for contractual whatever. So the number now is 45,928,878,
So what's the delta?
Yeah,
300,000.
300,000. It's the same.
Mark again, please, that number 45.
45,928,878.
878.
878 is consistent.
And just for clarity, what is the number that they're coming down to?
46,102,800.
So how much off are we on that?
200 something?
300,000.
300.
Approximately 300,000.
It's about 180,000, actually.
80,000.
Yeah, less than 2.
Because they went down to 150.
Let's get the numbers
Because you got
correct
the
here,
150
please.
off, you're on the right.
That's correct, 'cause they took the 150
If you
off.
take the 150
That's
and.
why the remainder is
Yep.
the 170,
Somebody get a calculator.
high 170.
What's that difference now?
It's
All right.
about 180,000, yes,
Give or take, yep.
give or take.
So, the microphones are on, Mr. Shane.
Now it is.
Mr. Chairman, do you need to correct, do you need to vote on the correction that Mark has made?
I want him, he has made the motion, and there was a second, and he's amended the amount. So, once again, this is to vote on Mark's number, revised number, of 45,928,878.
Oh, I don't think we can do that, honestly.
Should
Well,
vote on the
someone who's
amendment.
better
If
than
we're
me.
going to adjust his number, I believe you have to defeat the article.
Yes.
Well,
And then
how-
revise
I
it.
can withdraw the
And
article.
then you come.
Withdraw the
Withdraw-
motion and make,
Withdraw the article, the motion, Mr. Chairman.
and make a new motion.
Withdraw the motion, and new motion is that to amend the school budget, which was submitted at 46,252,8 to 45,928,878. It's about 4%.
Second.
Second by Jeff. Any other discussion on that?
I just want to make a comment, Mr. Chairman. This is actually refreshing because the largest budget in the town is actually having time to actually analyze it. Typically, we would go through the school committee budget in about 15 minutes and spend most of our time on the cemetery budget. So,
Not that long, Mike, not 15.
so this is better. At least we're
Mark's gonna
going
bring
to
up the
get some
secretary of new
details.
business, just so you know.
So, ready for the vote.
All right. So all those in favor of the
Read-
motion
Read the number, we're just. so
For-
we know
of
what we're voting.
$45,928,878.
Which is 300 below what they're asking.
To 180,000.
180,000. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I'll put a new motion on that we accept their compromise, whatever number it
At
is.
$46,102,800. $46,102,800.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
A motion by Mr. Courier at that amount, second by Mr. Nicholson. 46,102,800. All those in favor of that number? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in favor. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've accepted your budget.
Thank you.
You're not done though. You also have a article on there, Article 37. Folks, we're almost done, let's hang in there a little bit. 37 is a request for funding for Chromebooks. Mr. McIntyre and the school committee submitted a business plan. I forget what day it was, I think on Thursday. It's been put up on the drive. Entitled 5517, updated Chromebook. I hope all of you had a chance to take a look at that. All right, with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. McIntyre again.
So, Mr. Chairman, what are you looking for in terms of this presentation? Are you,
Right now, I want you to just give it another quick highlight, because I'm not sure 100% of our participants may have reviewed it. So, can you give me a couple highlights on the, on?
Absolutely. Matt, is Matt back there? Do you want to speak to the Chromebook initiative?
Before you get on, could I bring up, since it came through the capital subcommittee?
Yep.
We had budgeted, and I don't want to get into $600,322.18.
Right, roughly
We had
$600,000.
budgeted roughly 600 grand.
Correct.
It's been in the plan for the fall. And the school committee came forward and said, we screwed up. We missed a year, because the kids coming out of Woodland, if we wait till the fall, we won't be able to get them till the following year. We'll have a year where it skips. So what the subcommittee talked about is, okay, if we move whatever number forward, the debate was, is it 3 years, 4 years, to the spring, you don't come back in the fall. The number for Chromebooks is still the 600,000.
Correct.
Just because we're moving it forward would, let's say this is, I don't know, 300,000. That means that in the fall, I would not come back and try and spend 1.5 million. I would have capital of 1.2, because in my mind, in my committee's mind, we already spent, 300,000 that was budgeted for the fall. So we talked about moving it, but we're not changing, because I know a question came out. Well, then come the fall, the school committee will come back and ask for more. And we have your word, you won't.
Correct.
So this is really, this article is about moving money from fiscal 18 into fiscal 17, so that the kids coming out of Woodland don't miss a year on the Chromebook initiative. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's clear, because people came back and said, well, then they'll ask for 600 in the fall. And I said, no, we have their word, they won't.
The 600,000 basically would cover both Stacy and Milford High School. Correct.
The whole, yes.
7, 8.
So it'd basically make us a one-to-one environment from grade 3 through 12,
But
including
that's the
Woodland
600 total, takes care of everybody.
6, 7, 8 is Stacy, and then 9.
And 9 through 12 at the high school.
And we're saying for
correct.
the spring meeting, we could do 1 year, but that's very inefficient for implementation. It's
Correct.
better to do at least Stacy.
Correct.
And then something came up about freshman year also, special tests, so I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so
But did I portray it accurately?
Yeah, absolutely. So ideally, we'd love the full 6 through 12 funded. I think just based on MCAS testing that's coming up, in 2019, the 10th grade test will be done digitally, online. And so from like a needs perspective, we would love a 6 through 9 proposal, so 6, 7, and 8 for Stacy Middle School to cover Stacy completely, and 9th grade for the high school, if we couldn't cover the full amount in the spring. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
But if we did cover it in the spring, you get nothing in the fall.
Correct, correct.
Now,
So we're clear.
Clear as mud, Al.
And one thing that I had voiced concern over is that, since your budget's gone up, I have concerns about the whole 600,000 now. Okay? I'd like to see you break it up. And
So-
as of my opinion, I think, obviously implementing that many Chromebooks, there's concerns about anyway, but I want you to think about just doing the 4 grades in May and cutting that down. That's a lot of money, and it's a lot of money that we could use, and see how that goes. And then it will certainly be a learning lesson, I think, for you guys, because that's one of my concerns, is rolling out that many Chromebooks all at once. You'll almost have a phasing effect on it, and I would like to see you guys adjust that down to just the 4 grades.
And Mr. Chairman,
Just
would
me.
we be looking at October to do the remaining 3?
That's what's budgeted.
Okay.
It hasn't been
Well,
approved.
I'd say we'll look at it.
Okay.
We'll look at it depending on where funding is.
I would suggest that they could go for the full 600,000 and just spend one grade's worth to purchase tablets and then learn from that experience.
Well, we've done,
Move forward after that.
We did a three grade school this past September, so.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if
We do
I
have
may,
a bit
we
of
asked
experience.
about that, and there seems to be some inefficiency and confusion if you do one grade at Stacy and not the other two. So that was the reason we said, like Woodland, do the school, bring everybody up. Now, the freshman thing, the fourth year, I'm with Chris candidly. With what we just did, have a heart, leave some for the fall.
So the only thing I would ask, Al, is that we would do the 4 grades.
Do 4 grades in the
Yeah,
spring and
absolutely.
leave the rest for the fall.
And I think we can be 100% agreeable to that.
Sorry, Mike.
No,
Mr.
no.
Chairman,
My suggestion
subcommittee
wasn't the
never
one
talked
grade, it
about
was,
this
it was
article, so-
going for the appropriation all at
My
once.
recommendation is that we table it until we have a subcommittee meeting with the school committee and talk about it. Because I think there are a bunch of issues with the business plan as presented.
Okay.
And I don't
Yeah.
wanna waste everybody's time here tonight to go through it all and hash it out. So my motion is to table it until we can get together with the subcommittee and with the school committee and discuss it and come up with a recommendation for this committee. At that point in time, we can have a meeting before town meeting.
Yeah.
It has to be in this May meeting. It has to be.
Well, that's what I was gonna.
Otherwise we lose the whole advantage that we tried.
I didn't say that. I said we could have a meeting before town meeting with this committee and go over the recommendation by the subcommittee and make a recommendation.
Just the budget committee, right, Mark?
Say again?
Just the school budget, because capital's already
Yeah,
gone through
that's-
3 meetings.
No, I know.
We have our
School
recommendation.
subcommittee.
The school subcommittee.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about it. That's a subcommittee, and if that's okay with
I
this
mean,
committee,
You
then
guys
fine.
have talked about
We
it.
could, we
have.
could spend
We've
plenty of
talked
time.
You guys have talked about it. You had a presentation on it and everything, didn't you?
This
We had-
committee-
I think we've already gone over this, though.
That's-
Pretty sure we have.
That's why I'm
You wanna
confused.
talk about it tonight then, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, because I thought you had told me that you had talked about it and the people
We had-
came in,
we
they
had a
showed you the.
presentation.
We had a
Exactly.
presentation, but we didn't discuss
We
it
never
among the
discussed it.
subcommittee, and I will.
That's fine, then we can discuss it now.
Okay.
Alright? So,
You wanna
shoot.
talk about
Let's do
tonight?
it now. Let's do it.
Shoot.
Do it now.
Let's get it done.
I just have a couple of questions. The business plan that as submitted, I think leaves out all the infrastructure support on how you're gonna maintain 3,000 Chromebooks once you do it all. How many people is that gonna take? What's the process for replacing and upgrading the Chromebooks? What happens when they fail? Who's gonna service them? Your capital assets, and you're sending them home with kids, what's the process for doing that, and how do you recoup when they lose them or break them at home? How do you upgrade the software on them on an ongoing basis and maintain that? How do you train the teachers to use them?
So I would say.
One question.
Yeah.
No, I just wanna go over the whole thing, and then you can summarize it for me, and that'll be fine. Training for the teachers, and how are we gonna do that, cause I know it's optional for the teachers because of a union contract.
6 to 12.
And,
Guys, listen to Mark's questions, please.
I lost my last train of thought because you interrupted me because I was on a roll.
I was trying to quiet them down so they could listen to your questions.
Oh, curriculum. Do you have the curriculum in place, or do you know what curriculum you're gonna purchase going forward for grades 6 through 12? And how you're gonna use those Chromebooks in grades 6 through 12? Because kids in 3 through 5 are different than grades 9 through 12. Okay, totally different issue, and I don't see any of that in this proposal. All I see is the amount of money to replace them on an ongoing basis. And again, my recommendation for that is that they come out of the choice account, so the money is available. So if you can just coagulate that all for me, so we can all feel comfortable about having 3,000 books out there unattended and et cetera, would be great.
Sure, I'm actually gonna kind of go in reverse and
Can I ask a
forgot to
favor?
hit my
Can you move up to the
Sure.
microphone? I wasn't kicking
We
money
gotta
out of
make-
the.
we
Oh,
gotta
he has one. I'm
make-
sorry, I
switch
couldn't.
up.
We got a
Everybody
roaming
I'm
mic
sorry,
like
I didn't see the
Aerosmith.
microphone.
I'm just,
I apologize.
okay. So first of all, the curriculum, we're not purchasing additional curriculum. These are tools to access curriculum. So the learning devices are going to be accessing curriculum that's currently in place. We'll be working with the curriculum department, our CTLs, which are our curriculum team leaders, and using the devices to access the current curriculum that we have. We'll be using, because we're utilizing our Chrome environment, we'll be utilizing all the Google Suite for accessing curriculum, creating documents, and retaining information and presenting information. So the curriculum piece is within our domain. We will have a professional development calendar, which we started to talk a little bit about on here. There'll be some there'll be some June discussions with teachers as we move forward over the summer proposals. We also did not, in the proposal timeline, we talked about an October 2nd rollout, so we'd have the entire month of September to train, update all documents that were on here as well, that will be starting immediately after approval of the full funding of this, and getting those documents, which you were talking about, some of the issues in one of your questions. The upgrading of the software, that happens, the software gets pushed out from our network manager. We don't need to touch every device to update the software. Part of the advantage of using the Chromebooks is that the software is updated through the wireless. So we would send out a package, we meaning our technology network manager would send out a package, electronic package, and would update the computers when they logged in. So when they would log into the computer, it would refresh, update the software, and that's done through Google. So that is done virtually, so all the machines would update on their own. We wouldn't need the manpower, person power, to touch every single machine for the maintenance of it. As far as fixing the computers, one of the things that we've found this year, we've had very few breakage, and we've had 1,000 Chromebooks. So it's very low level of issues, and to date, we've currently purchased 25 spares, and we haven't had to send one out to be used yet. So the breakage is very low, and we actually have seen the breakage reduce when the students had their own. Where we've seen the most breakage is when they're sharing them between multiple classes, like that's happening at the middle school right now. Once the students become personalized with their device, the breakage is very, very low. We do have our technician, we have our network team, our technology student team that's been updating and fixing Chromebooks as well. We do have some spares that we've used to replace spare parts, keys, keyboards, full keyboards, screens. So as far as the current purchase that we've had, we've been able to maintain that very smoothly this year with the current staffing that we have.
Can I interrupt you for one question?
Sure.
What is the repair procedure? Is it the child pays for it? Is it we eat it? How does that work? If a kid drops it in the middle of the hallway, I understand it's an
Correct.
accident. Is there any financial repercussions to the family, or?
We would, let me
At this
let me
point, no,
actually,
yeah.
let me actually answer that question. We look at it like, we'd almost look at a textbook.
Yeah.
The student's responsible for the textbook, so if there's normal wear and tear on a textbook at the end of the year, we just sign off on it.
Okay.
If there's, there's some kind of abuse happening, that's a different discussion, like we would with any school issue device or
So you do it
material.
on a case-by-case basis?
Correct.
If the kid's playing Frisbee with it, he's responsible for it.
And
He
I do-
accidentally trips and falls, it breaks,
That's a
you
different
guys pick
story.
it up.
And one of the policies that we talked about in the plan is talking about the device responsible use and the home expectations and how that would be. And I had it actually at our technology team meeting today, and we're already starting to develop some of those policies, so those will be in place for the rollout. The advantage of, we talk about people, we'll have our highest amount of support in the summer. So having the number approved, move forward and purchase for the summer, we'll have many student technicians and our technology staff over the summer to work on the machines to make sure that they're ready for September.
Did that hit all the questions, Mark?
I don't remember.
So you asked about people, you asked about replacement. So with the number that we put forward, there's enough spares to cut. We went off the percent.
The biggest concern I have is infrastructure and how you're going to keep track of all of these devices.
Okay, so one of the things, so
How you gonna do that?
sure. So I met with 2 different companies on a bar scanner. So we would code each of those with an actual ticket. We'd have a scanner and create a catalog of, well, again, the advantage of each student having one is that we can connect the serial number to a student.
so that we would log them in by grade level, by school, to know where each one of those machines are. And for now, for the iPads, we use a software called Meraki, but we're looking at multiple software tools that we would be able to catalog, almost like a library card catalog system, where we would know where each machine is for each student in whatever building it is through the barcode scanner.
So, I'm now in grade 3, which probably is where I'm at these days. And I moved to grade 4. Do I take my Chromebook with me to grade 4, or do I get another one when I get to grade 4?
No, you would take your Chromebook with you for 4 consecutive years, and we have the replacement plan built in would be a replacement in 7th grade.
Okay, so.
Do they keep it
what
over
if I'm in
summer?
grade 5 now, and I move to grade 6 next year? What do I do with my Chromebook?
This current 5th grade,
Yeah.
this current 5th grade's Chromebooks would go to the incoming 3rd grade. So the current Woodland Chromebooks
So,
are gonna, let me
okay.
finish. So the current Chromebooks at Woodland, 1,000 Chromebooks plus the spares we just ordered, stay in that building. The new allotment of devices that would be purchased would go to Stacy and hopefully the 9th grade.
Okay, so I'm that's 5th grade student now.
Yep.
And I have a signed out Chromebook, and I've had it since 3rd grade. Correct?
So, well, now we're talking 2 different things.
I'm talking about the same thing. I'm a 5th grade student.
Yep.
What-
This year or a 3rd grader moving up 2 years? Just
5 years from now. I'm a 5th grade student, and I have a Chromebook that I got it when I came into the school on 3rd grade, right?
Yep.
3rd, 4th, and 5th. Now I go to 6th. I turn in my Chromebook to Woodland, and I get a new one when I go to Stacy, correct?
So there's 2 different rules of engagement that we have going on, because the
Shoot first and ask questions later, or?
none of that, actually.
No, the purchase we make at Woodland through the building committee, those devices have to stay at Woodland.
Understand
Purchase
that.
we make going forward, we're gonna have more flexibility on. So
My-
we've worked
my-
the plan out so we can do a replacement through the Woodland process of a 3rd grade to 5th grade, and then we also have a different plan for 6th grade and up.
My objective for the discussion was how do you keep track of them and who keeps track of them and.
our department.
Wait, you told me that you were going to scan them, enter the student's name and all of his pertinent data, all right?
Correct.
Now, when he goes to 6th grade, you have to redo all of that as, when he go.
Because he's still in the
New
system.
Chromebook.
Yeah, but the way, the software will actually work with our rules of engagement, for lack of a better term.
So we would unenroll your hypothetical 5th grader by scanning it out, and then the new Chromebook we'd scan in, and our software would update with the new device accounted for that student.
It'd be the same thing if he broke it.
Correct.
Scan out the broken one, scan in the new one. You now have laptop 38.
Yes.
Okay, so you have the infrastructure to manage that and handle that, the people to do all the scanning. I mean, 300 people is a lot.
Well, it wouldn't be
Ask him, he
300
takes
people. Yes, we would, because we're gonna be working with multiple people to train them how to do this, maybe the librarian, I don't,
It's part of my concern. How are we gonna deal with all of this?
and part of my excitement about this is I think we have the people in-house, and I think what we've learned this year is how to make it even better, and I think we'll be able to manage that through third-party software, through our own on-site personnel and our student tech team, yes.
So these are not employees of the town that are managing all of this? These are students, is what you're saying?
No, you asked about the in the summer, the students will be working to hit the bar scanner, yes, and they're part of our training program that we've been updating all year, every computer that they've had an opportunity to work on.
What I'm trying to get to is increase in personnel costs to manage all of this. Is there going to be an increase in personnel costs at the administrative level or at the tech level somewhere to manage all of this?
At this
And
point, we
that's
said
not
no.
in here.
No, we're keeping the same technology staff that we have right now.
Okay, so you're not gonna increase personnel?
For next year, no.
Well, wait a minute.
Wait, the
No,
key
stop.
word there was for
Wait a
next
minute,
year.
Mark, we
Well, if a
budgeted
year-
151.
I understand what we did. I'm just
And-
asking the question.
No, but I'm just saying, we were clear that 151 has 3 people budgeted. How you use them?
No, Al, that's not my question. My question is it going to increase?
Yeah, and it's a.
And the statement
it's a
was
valid
not this
question.
year.
Yeah. Now,
That's not in here. I wanna know, I would like to know going forward.
This increasing Chromebooks will not result in additional staffing. We can't say what's gonna happen 4 years down the road or 5 years down the road, so we're not gonna commit to no staffing eventually, but adding these Chromebooks will not result in additional staffing.
I think that's.
I agree with that.
Yes, and I third that.
Okay, and I.
Good point.
To Mark's point on infrastructure, we talked about infrastructure on that end. Can I ask you a question about infrastructure on the other end? We just redid Stacy, we just did the high school. I throw 1,000 Chromebooks into Stacy. Are we
So,
good?
yeah, so the
Wireless
infra- yeah,
wise,
so the infrastructure we put
bandwidth
in-
wise, everything?
Yeah, so the infrastructure we put into place in any building, once we finish the wiring project in the summer, which is the last phase of the E-rate,
Yep.
which is happening at the high school, and it's Brookside, right? Thank you.
The infrastructure can support 5 devices per student.
Okay, because I knew that we had the money and we did it. I just want to know, it's all in place
We're
now.
going to do it. High school isn't done.
High
yet.
school
school's
at
not done yet.
Brookside is in process.
Will the high school be done by September?
Yes.
Yes.
Because I don't want them walking in the first day of school with brand-new, spanking new
Neither do we.
Chromebooks that they can't use. Okay,
I wouldn't either, and they actually would get them on October 2nd with our plan.
okay, great.
I know we talked about this a little bit, about that, and I talked about why that the students couldn't buy their own Chromebook. And I make the comparison, I just had 4 kids go through the school, and they had that one class that they were required to buy a graphing calculator. Wasn't cheap, probably around the same price as the Chromebooks. Why is this not the same thing?
Well, when a lot of the research that we did of bring your own device reduced the amount of safety we were able to provide for the network when we had multiple devices. It reduced the amount of professional development we could provide our teachers in creating a same device infrastructure as far as not the infrastructure that chairperson was talking about, but within the school district, that it wasn't going to create, from where we started a year ago, to keep moving forward within the next 5 years, creating a same device environment is going to increase our success level for working with students and training teachers. Everything that you just asked for, the people will not need to be increased. The replacements will be able to handle that. How we fix them, we will be able to train our staff to fix one device. That was a training as well. Upgrade, we'll be able to upgrade all the machines because they're one device network. And the curriculums we talked about, the curriculum's going to be embedded.
Mr. Chairman, that's not what he asked. We had to buy a specific graphing calculator for this course. It was the HP 3305 or whatever the number was. What he's asking is, why don't we sell the Chromebooks to the students for $219? Same Chromebooks that you want to buy, but just instead of us paying $600,000 for them, sell them to the students once we buy them.
So
Now they own
So
their
one
own
of the,
Chromebook.
let me actually respond to that. One of the issues we're seeing across the state, it actually happened in Mendon Upton, is there was a lawsuit brought by, I think, a member of the community around costs connected to devices. And it tied into kind of free and reduced lunch programming, equity and access. And Mendon Upton lost that suit, or settled that suit.
They ultimately bought the machine.
Mr. Chairman,
Really,
I
I
am
should've-
really
I should've
confused.
sued.
Jeff, am I hearing that for Milford students to take a course, they have to spend $200?
Had to buy the graphing calculator, correct?
$300.
Well, whatever it is,
Whatever
Mark,
it was, yeah.
$200-300, but
Yeah,
if I want to take a course, what happens if I can't afford it?
And that's the exact question with the Chromebook issue. And that's something we can
Well,
definitely.
no, but
look into.
Kevin, I just heard something that's, you can take it up, but that's disturbing to me that one of,
It's not a required.
oh, it's not, it's an optional.
Available in the class if you don't have.
Will these Chromebooks keep me from eliminating kids that don't have $300?
Well, we're
Can
not
I
asking
do graphing
students
calculator
to-
applications?
I don't know the specifics, so I don't want to go on
But
camera.
Matt, could you put it on your list? Because somewhere in the future, I'm
There are
gonna ask you, because
calculators,
I'm really
there-
uncomfortable saying that, little Nero, can you spend $300? No, then you can't take a class. That bothers me. That really fundamentally, it's like, you can't ride the bus unless you pay $400 in some communities. That doesn't feel right. Matt, could you figure that out?
Sure, I'll try to find the.
That would
exact-
make me feel a lot better. Forget whether you buy the Chromebooks or not, but in general, I don't like this idea that it's an optional course, so only those who can afford to take it get it. That really fundamentally goes against everything I've believed in the Milford school system. Sorry.
No, absolutely. I had to
I
buy
will
the
look into
TI
that, but
85
that's
too.
also
I
why
know
we
what it was.
want students bring their own devices.
So,
Mr. Source?
So I've kind of bounced between, do I want to support this, do I don't want to support this? And for once, my concern isn't financial. It's actually, I look at my own children, they're 5 and 3, and all they want to do is play with my iPad, my wife's Surface. And so my concern is about just too much technology exposure to our young kids. Is there going to be any scheduled off time during the day?
One of the things, it's very interesting to say that, because it's a concern of ours too. We don't want it to be on screen all the time. We're actually going to be screening a film called screenagers at Woodland, I think in a couple weeks. It's about just the,
That open to the public?
yeah, absolutely. And basically what that's about is it's starting that exact conversation, because we are concerned about just the amount of screen time between phones, computers, iPads that students have, and we do want to have a balance. And that's why we're not saying we're eliminating all the textbooks, we're eliminating, it's kind of, I mean, computers are a tool that are almost, and we said this before, it's
Absolutely.
every profession. I mean, everybody touches technology, no matter what you do, basically. And we want to make sure that students are prepared for that. But we also know that we need to have a balance. And that's one of the conversations we're starting with this presentation. Unfortunately, I don't have the date. I think it's sometime in early June is what it's scheduled. It's a film at Woodland. Matt's presenting, a couple other folks from the community are presenting to kind of start that dialogue in the community.
Okay.
It's about matching, Michael. And for me, as a principal for the last 11 years, I'm looking at the instructional piece of this and ensuring that our Milford students have the tools to access the curriculum. If it doesn't match what's happening, they need to be off. If you're having a debate, you shut the computers and you have a debate. You talk it through. If you need to do research, and there's a tool that you have, we're providing our students with the tools they need to succeed in the classroom.
I had one question,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
can I ask a question?
Go, of course, you're the chairman.
One of the issues that I had that I noted that I wanted to ask you about is in the day and age that we live in, we are going to arm 1,000 high school students with computers with access to our network. There's some smart kids out there.
Yep.
You see every day that I have to get a new credit card because Citigroup is hacked or whatever. What defenses do you have, or will you have, now that you are now going to introduce 2,000 people to your network?
That might be
With
better
network
for
access.
executive session, right, for security
Oh,
purposes?
Yeah.
I can answer it if,
Yeah.
in a global.
Yeah,
non-
globally, please. Good
Globally,
point.
there's two pieces of software. I won't get into the specifics of names if that's not allowed.
Thank you.
One looks at Chromebooks themselves. So we have a piece of software that tells us what each student has accessed, what they've clicked on, where they've gone, how long it's been on, and if there's anything that's flagged, we get that. There's a secondary tool that looks at safety, both any personal information, self-harm, negative language that gets trafficked through Drive in our network. So we'd have both of those in place the day these are in the students' hands.
Okay, so there's no threat that this kid's going to get onto our network and be able to access sensitive information?
Well, I don't want to say there is none, but in the devices we provide, we are going to have the security in place to prevent it.
Okay.
At least try.
Yeah,
Sure.
try. And hey,
the whole building-
Citigroup gets, and they probably spend $1 billion a year on cyber defense and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I just want to go back to some basic budget questions. So I think we're probably already on this path since we've armed Woodland with Chromebooks. As, you know, we can't pull back from that and say we're not going to do it. But I'm a little confused with your replacement plan paragraph in here. So the $600,000 is to buy Chromebooks for Stacy Middle School and the high school?
Correct.
Okay, so we're gonna go from Woodland all the way up to high school.
Freshman high school.
So not the entire high
Well,
school.
the 600,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, the
600,000 is the whole
600 is for everything, whether we spend some of it now and spend some of it later, but we're gonna do the whole thing. Okay, so within 2 years, we have given everybody a brand-new Chromebook.
Correct.
So why does the replacement budget plan have to start in fiscal year 19? I'm assuming these, I'm sorry, Mark?
These existing ones.
Existing ones, which are what, a year old?
Well, that'll be 2
A
years.
year old.
3 years.
I'm assuming that these Chromebooks have a life of 5 or 6 years. So,
Closer to 4.
putting, but, well, I mean, these are hoping that they get some money. So why are we, so we're gonna embed into the budget, beginning in fiscal year 19, a replacement plan of 1/6 of the Chromebooks. So,
Not exactly 1/6 if we did, you know, I don't have the percentage, but when it was asked, when we met in the subcommittee back in November, one of the things that was asked of me was that the one-time expense would then be absorbed by the school budget. So if my thought process with the replacement plan and budgeting is that there would be no ask for an increase for next year, and then in the third year, start to build our own school budget to absorb the full replacement over a 4 or 5 year plan. So the plan was to increase the budget one grade level per year for essentially, not next year, but the 2 following years. And then
Okay.
replace 2 grade levels because they'd have 4 years at that point on their life.
But Matt, that was increase the allocation of the existing school budget.
The technology budget that I
Wasn't-
would be proposing.
What I'm hearing,
Yeah, I'm hearing
we had
two different
asked,
things,
because
too.
Mark brought it up, he said, okay, they've got PCs that they're not gonna be paying on, they've got books that they're changing over. So you're not coming back to us for
Correct.
more money.
Correct.
We'd agreed, how you allocate inside your budget is yours, but you're not coming back
Correct.
for that 1/6.
That's talking internal school budget.
That's, I just wanna make sure.
Okay, so
But I
that
wanted to
was,
build our technology budget over time to increase, to absorb the replacement on our end.
I think
No,
we
see,
need
now-
some data
No,
on
no,
that.
no.
everyone stop.
Can I clarify?
Everyone stop 1 second. So I think Mr. McIntyre can
Yeah.
say it.
So and I think Al kind of alluded to this too, is we've done Dell leases over the years, and a good chunk of that money is gonna come from that portion, and we've got a plan to cover the difference.
Correct, because, and we had said, we will upfront you, but you will take care of it after this.
Correct.
And we give you the 600, you are responsible for buying Chromebooks, and they agreed to it, so that's why.
And that's 100% accurate.
Yeah.
And that's why I said choice.
This is a
money
go forward.
Yeah.
To do that.
Yeah.
Now, the other question you didn't answer yet is, teacher training. How are you gonna manage that? I know that's optional for the teachers, they don't have to go to these things. And if you don't train the teachers in grades 6 through 12 to utilize this technology, then it'll be lost. So what's the plan to make that happen?
So it's gonna happen in 3 different ways. One, we're gonna offer optional sessions over the summer. 2, we've got built-in professional development time during the school year, where a portion of that has been connected to technology training. And 3, a number of the teachers in middle school and high school have already gone through a number of trainings and are already using the Google Classroom platform, both at the middle school and the high school level, because we do have some Chromebook carts across the district that the people have been sharing.
That's a big concern.
Yeah, and that's gonna be ongoing and embedded, and some of our technology integration folks are going in and actually working with the classrooms or the teachers directly in the classrooms as well.
And the last thing, Mr. Chairman, when we did have the discussion at the subcommittee level, part of that discussion was the advantage of using a Chromebook for education and the return on that investment in smarter kids, better kids, faster kids, taller kids, whatever. And the response we got was that we don't have enough data as yet to understand what the advantages are of these devices. And I would just like to ask the school committee to start, I mean, we'll have a year out in another month. I think that over the next couple, 3 or 4 years, we need to report, in my opinion, on the advantages of using these throughout grade 3 through 12, and see what the benefits really are.
And we can absolutely do that. The one thing I'll say is that we're seeing this, and I think educators across the country are seeing this as just a tool of the trade for students. And
all
it's,
that.
yeah, so, but we
And I've
will
talked to
definitely.
teachers that use it.
Yeah, and we'll definitely track it, there's no question about it.
And wouldn't that be tracked like in as well?
It will be, and I think I talked to the subcommittee, is what we're seeing with the park testing nationally is you see an initial dip because the students aren't comfortable taking the tests online, and then you see a progression upwards, is typically the.
I think that's a very good point, Mark, because I think to quantify something like that, it would certainly be difficult, but I think you can definitely do it. And it would be a nice thing to see how the improvement, is linked with Chromebooks and the ability to have them, that technology at their fingertips and the different teaching methods that you guys can use. And,
I mean, I will say, I talked to somebody about it, and the person at Woodland, and the response I got was, when kids come back in the next day after an assignment, they have to do an assessment for the teacher, and then the teacher understands what in fact they understood or not understand. I think that's really beneficial, actually, if the data is used correctly, and we have the infrastructure to manage all of that, and I think it'd be great. Mr. Chairman, I move that we go for the whole
I was just
600.
gonna ask you,
Second?
Excuse me?
I move
Wow,
that.
didn't see
I
that
move
one
we allocate 600, or approve the article for $600,000 going forward.
Second.
I'm just soaking this in for a
Yeah,
minute.
This is not hard, Mr. Chairman. They asked
No,
for
it's not.
600. We should give them the 600 and let them implement everything over the summer.
590.
What have you done with Mark?
Yes,
No,
guy.
no, it's,
It's my
but
influence.
again, that means nothing in the fall. Just putting on my subcommittee hat,
Absolutely.
nothing in the fall.
It will not be
Yeah,
reoccurring.
Memorial.
Playground is different. Playground was last year.
You're
we
talking
committed-
Chromebooks is a one-time 600,000.
I'm talking your capital for the fall is now fulfilled in the spring.
That's not
except
true,
for-
the playgrounds.
Except for the playgrounds, which in my mind, we agreed
don't
to
put lunch
last
tables
year.
on, is what he's telling
Just to
me.
be clear, no Chromebooks in the fall.
Yeah.
No, that's not the deal.
Oh, okay.
The deal was no capital, no new capital. So the playground was something we agreed to last year. So that's off, that's different.
We can agree to that 100%.
Thank you.
No Chromebooks.
We have a sneak.
I have a motion and I have a motion and a second for a favorable recommendation for $590,000 on Article 37. All those, any other discussion?
One last question, so can you, how those numbers look, Al, with the whole 600,000 for,
Cool.
we're okay?
We're okay.
Okay.
We're okay. We just won't have as much free cash going into the fall. But on the other hand, we need 600,000 less in capital that we're expecting in the fall. So if worse comes to worse and you move some
I
of the
can see
capital
the
out.
finish line, guys.
Okay, ready for the vote?
All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, guys. Thank the school subcommittee. Thank you guys for hard work. Seriously, it's a lot of work, but I think
If you guys want to schedule
everybody
a
did great.
meeting for June, we can do that. It'll be at the Milford TV station.
And that figure was 590,000.
590,000.
We can do that. I'll have Melissa reach out to you, Mark.
I'm sorry?
I'll have Melissa reach out to you.
Okay, run.
All right, thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Okay. I will amend it, Zach, to 590 in my report.
Hey, Kevin. Hey, Kevin, when you have that date, I'd like to see that, the screenagers.
All right,
We're gonna send it out to everybody.
all right, guys, grand finale. We have Article 4 completely reviewed with all the departments. Guys, Article 4 is the big one. Can we pay attention? Or I accept, nope.
You want the new number minus the
Yep,
150?
can you give me the new number?
98,954,326.
Okay, you're ahead of me. Hold on one second.
And the balance sheet looks like?
Yeah, where are we?
98 million,
500. 98,954,326.
Try.
Negative 500,000.
Given the articles that will be also in conjunction with Article 4.
I think we have a problem, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, we
I
do.
think you have a problem, Mr. Chairman.
We're gonna work out how we're gonna make that up. Do I have a motion to give a favorable recommendation for Article 4 for $98,954,326?
I'm confused.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I don't think you can do that.
I don't think so.
You have to go to town meeting with a balanced budget.
Right.
All this does is reduce,
The budget's
3.2 million of
This
levy.
is
budget's balanced.
other
it's-
non-operating expenses that will have to be adjusted in the fall.
Okay.
With other sources of
Levy.
available.
No, Mark's right. We gotta balance it, but
It is. the
you
budget's
balance,
It'll
you
be
balance it.
3.2.
I'm sorry,
Levy
I meant the P and L.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Again?
It's been my night.
I should have seen your moment when I just, so is there, yes, and do I have a motion? Motion by Mike, second by Schiavi.
Mike and Mike.
All those in favor?
Mike and Mike show.
3 mics.
Hands up.
Mike and Mike.
Unanimous.
Mike and Mike.
All right, I
Mike,
want to.
Mike.
Yeah,
Snow and ice, that we talked about the other night.
No,
We wanna go home.
372?
Snow and ice.
374.
Oh, that's right,
372, 374.
Yep, we need to make a revision, couple late mailbox breakings. We need to revise the snow and ice number, I know, I can't believe it's coming in this late. We had approved, 372,000 for snow and ice, but it appears it's at 374,000. So,
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
moving by Mark to revise the number, second by Aldo. All those in favor? Unanimous.
What number?
374.
No. But what article?
There's something else I want to
I
know.
know, debate this $1,000.
370,
There it is, right there.
snow and ice, 42, 374,
All right.
got it.
Team, I want to thank you all. I mean, we've had some long meetings and certainly some heated discussions. The only people that benefit from these heated discussions are the residents of Milford, because it shows debate is happening. We are looking at these budgets to such a fine detail that to try to get the best deal for the taxpayers of Milford and also give the best services. We may disagree with them, but in the end, we look hard at it and we debate it. So I want to thank you all. And do I have a motion for an adjournment?
Oh, no, just, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yep.
Old business? Well,
Give him a bone, give him a bone.
Go ahead, buddy.
no, it's just that, you know, we conduct our meetings and we defer things and ask people to come back to us with information, and we never really continue that conversation. And the only way I can keep track of them is to continue to put them in the minutes. Other than that, they get lost and we never really reach closure on them. For example, in our March meeting, I think it was Jen Walsh came in and said she was gonna provide us more information with just how many students took the bus from the high school to go to work. And when I looked at some preliminary numbers that the Transportation Committee provided, it didn't gel with the numbers that she had presented. We asked her to come back with more definitive numbers as to the number of students per day, where they were going to work, and what time they were getting out of work. We haven't received that, to the best of my knowledge.
No, we haven't, but
The sewer department, we asked them almost a year ago to come back, look at the expansion. We haven't had them back.
That was in the paper, by the way.
Well, it wasn't here, Mark.
You're right.
they were,
It wasn't here.
they were
No, no,
scheduled
you're
to
right.
come in 2 months ago in their
Point being, these are things that I think should be on our radar.
and they are on my list, Mr. DeVita. And you're always good at bringing them up, and I sincerely
And
appreciate
there was
it.
one other thing, we received an attachment, or I did today, from one of our esteemed members, Mr. Nero, showing certain indices as to where the school system of Milford is placed with respect to other communities. And I think that deserves some conversation.
Absolutely.
Similarly, last year, we had the school committee come in and talk
Similarly.
about, talk about school choice, Mark, if you recall.
Oh, yeah.
And they said they were gonna come back each year. So that's another thing, I think, that we deserve an update on.
He reported on that.
Absolutely.
He
No,
reported numbers.
no, and I completely.
What's the percentages?
Yep, and I completely agree with you, Mr. DeVita, and those are all on my list. The last 2 or 3 meetings, though, I really just,
With budget, I completely
you know,
understand, you
so,
know.
and, you know, that's the reason why, but now that this is done, absolutely, like I said, sewer, right before we got into the budget season, they were supposed to come in, but it fell through. The bus numbers, I will pursue, and definitely, the information that Jeff sent was obviously, it was very powerful, and I think it's something we definitely need to discuss, now that the budget is
A
behind
lot
us.
more data.
Yep, and I'm sure there is, and it's something that, you know, the school subcommittee or this committee as a whole is something that we need to address with the schools. So, and I think it was excellent, the stuff that Jeff
And
sent over.
that report, thank you, Jeff, because it really, you know, I've been hearing there's certain towns around us that spend 18% more than us. And I'm looking at your report,
Not true.
and that report says no. So I think legitimately, that's something for the subcommittee to take up.
No question.
And come this summer, we're calling for a forum to go over that. So I'd love to have that from you, to really deal with legitimate numbers that includes everything.
Okay.
Al, you're right, and the DOE site has a ton of information, and we're starting to glean a lot of that out. To the bus answer, I gave Mike an article, if anybody read the Town Crier this past week, about Blackstone Valley, BBT. They have their own bus. They take all of their intern students and drop them off at their jobs and pick them up and drive them back. And I've tried to reach out to Dr. Fitzpatrick and get some numbers on what that cost him. Because if the biggest issue we have is students, we have 4 buses that sit at the high school.
Mark, my intent tonight was not to
I know.
design it here.
I
It was
agree.
just to keep track of these things. Otherwise, you just
Some
get
information.
lost.
Yep, there's no
And I think
question.
they're important issues.
Yeah, and you're,
Right.
Mr. DeVita, you're always good about that, and keep it up. You always keep us on our toes.
Increase my stipend, which is.
Absolutely.
10%
We'll
raise.
double your raise.
After this
We'll
budget,
double
we
your
don't have any more
salary.
Thank you,
money.
Mr. Chairman.
I'll move to adjourn.
Mark, second by Aldo.
Everybody's gonna agree with me?
All those in favor?
It was unanimous.
That's the
It was
mark we
unanimous.
like.
Thanks and have a great night.
1 out of 20.